Court was actually on the procedural portion that you referenced, this idea of nationwide injunctions. You know, there are district courts all around the country. There's a minimum of one federal district in every state, and many states have several federal district courts. And the question is whether one individual district court judge can, in a sense, prevent an entire policy across the country from going into effect. And there are a lot of really good, serious arguments from both the right and the left that is problematic. On the other hand, there are some very serious and good arguments from the members of the right and the left that there are instances in which that kind of a power is especially important. And a case like birthright citizenship might be that kind of classic case where the Constitution needs to mean the same thing across the nation. You don't really want a scenario where, whatever your position is on the policy issue of birthright citizenship, where citizenship means different things in different places.
The justices are expected to focus on the case itself focuses on the nationwide injunctions. Do you think the justices will talk about the constitutionality of the order itself? It's
a really good question, Diane, and I think that obviously it remains to be seen, but one of the tests when you're talking about injunctive relief is the likelihood of success on the merits. What that means here is the party that is seeking to enjoin the action likely to succeed in challenging the overall executive order, the order that would change birthright citizenship as a policy under the 14th Amendment. So the likelihood of success on the merits inherently includes a consideration of the merits, even though you're at this preliminary stage. So one of the challenges of the way in which the procedural posture of this case is set is that the Supreme Court did not have adequate briefing. They didn't even, in oral argument, have a focus on the merits. But the merits stand behind and are part and parcel of the injunction question. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Let's talk about some of these other major decisions, starting with this case that could determine whether parents have the right to opt their kids out of having to read and discuss LGBTQ-themed books in the classroom.
It's a really, really important case, and at oral argument, it seemed as though the challengers, the parents who want to be able to have their kids opt out of the curriculum that is set by the school board in Montgomery County, whether the parents seem to get a sympathetic audience before a court majority. We'll see how that plays out, but the idea here is that some of these children's story hour books included things like gay couples, gay married couples, and some of these parents religiously object to the idea of exposing their kids. Now, school boards say that if parents can opt out and have their kids opt out of pretty much anything just because it involves a particular character whose lifestyle may not be one that particular family agrees with, that there is a floodgates problem, a real slippery slope in terms of who gets to decide what the curriculum is.
And there's also this decision on the Affordable Care Act's mandate for no-cost preventative health care. Right now, under the Act, if you go and you get a standard physical, for example, you're not even supposed to be charged a copay for that. What could this decision do for that part of the law?
If the challenge to this portion of the Preventative Care Act and under the Affordable Care Act is successful, millions of Americans who have come to rely on one of the signature aspects of the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare, this idea that you can get these preventative measures without a copay, without any cost to you, because the insurers, as part and parcel of the law, are required to provide those coverages without a copay. Millions of Americans could lose that ability and could be charged by their insurance companies for those services. So significant, one of the latest in the myriad seriatim, one after another challenges to the Affordable Care Act. Most of those challenges have proven to be unsuccessful. This one has potential to be significant.
And James, we're getting breaking news right now that the justices have issued a partial stay in the birthright citizenship ruling. I'm here. You have something on your laptop you might want to check out. We are literally getting this in real time, folks. So bear with us as we're reading up on this decision. But it looks like they're issuing a partial stay on that nationwide injunction, so that will put some limits, at least, on the administration in terms of what they can do with that executive order in a few states that have now issued these injunctions against this birthright citizenship order. Again, there's this underlying question to the court as to whether the order itself is constitutional. But what the justices are focused on in this decision here is whether or not a judge in one state, one location, can rule that the order is unconstitutional and then issued a nationwide injunction pausing the ability to move forward on that executive order throughout the entire country. The attorneys fighting here for the administration tried to argue that that's overstepping and that each individual state should have to bring their own case and have their own injunction issued there in order to stop the order in each of those states. The justices had to consider whether or not that was so, or if one judge can go ahead and order a nationwide injunction. This is the Citizenship Clause doctrine right now that again, weighing on the constitutionality of the order itself and whether being born in this country automatically makes you a citizen. And that's sort of the underlying issue in this case. But again, what the justices were focused on here was, can one judge in one location issue an injunction nationwide and put a pause on that executive order? James, what do you make of how the justices ruled here?
Well, it's a 6-3 decision, Diane. The main opinion is written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and the holding is that these, as you said, universal nationwide injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has given to individual federal district courts. And so the court grants the government's application for a partial stay of the injunction. So that's a little bit difficult to parse, but what that is essentially a double negative, right?
Pause the injunction, which means the order can move forward.
Exactly, at least with respect to repealing or pausing the stays that the federal district court judges had issued. Now, that doesn't mean that birthright citizenship law changes immediately, and we have to dig in further, but it's essentially, as you say, it's a pause. It stays those earlier injunctions, meaning those earlier injunctions are now lifted. They no longer apply. Now, there is still the potential that there could be future stays, future injunctions, based on the precedent here. There'll be further litigation about that. It appears that that is quite likely. But for now, this is a victory for the Trump administration, at least on the very sort of binary aspect. The government gets part of what the federal government, the Trump administration wanted to get here.
Explain a little bit more where partial comes into play. If they're saying the injunctions are now lifted, what's partial about it?
Well, so far, and obviously this is breaking as we...
Yeah, I know I'm putting you on the spot as we're literally reading the decision right now, James.
But so far, and it's a totally fair question, what the court says is that the injunctions that were issued here were broader than necessary to provide relief to each particular plaintiff. So what that means is that an individual federal district court judge generally only has jurisdiction over the parties who are before him or her, or potentially in that particular district. So potentially, and we need to dig into this a little bit more fully to say this with some more confidence, but potentially what this means is that individual plaintiffs need to bring their own actions, or maybe perhaps operate as a putative class action to bring this action in a way that could potentially bind the nation. But for now, the idea that these individual federal district court judges can enjoin, meaning prevent, prohibit, the policy from going into effect on a nationwide basis, those injunctions, and these were powerful injunctions by judges from across the political spectrum, even a Reagan appointee. So this is not necessarily left versus right. And we're talking with birthright citizenship about over 100 years of precedent that has been uninterrupted. So this is a huge blockbuster decision by the court, even though it's couched in this procedural language of partial stay, of an administrative injunction and all of that. The consequences here are the ramifications are potentially significant.
And on that note, James, Justice Clarence Thomas issued a concurring opinion, and he's stressing there that the court, and I'm quoting here, today puts an end to the increasingly common practice of federal courts issuing universal injunctions. So talk about what that does, bigger picture, not just for this executive order on birthright citizenship, but several others, nationwide injunctions in effect right now.
Really important point, really important question, Diane, because what this is, and bigger picture than in terms of the Trump administration, they are no doubt dancing in the White House right now about this ruling, because these nationwide injunctions, as you say, they're not limited to birthright citizenship. Many of the policies, the aggressive policies of this administration, flexing executive power, have been enjoined, have been sort of stayed, meaning that they're prevented from going into effect pending litigation on a nationwide basis. So those policies, if this ruling, which it seems quite likely, and with Clarence Thomas's concurrence, is if there's assuming that there's a majority that is with him on that point, and I think that's relatively safe to say given the 6-3 majority in the overall opinion, that means that challenges to the Trump administration's executive actions across the spectrum of substantive topics are likely to now face significant barriers, meaning that the Trump administration is going to be more likely to succeed in the near term.
And James, we now have a special report.
This is an ABC News special report.
Good morning. I'm Whit Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air because the Supreme Court has just released a potential landmark decision impacting the future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. The justices were asked to roll back nationwide injunctions against the president's attempt to redefine the 14th Amendment, which states that anyone born in the U.S. is automatically a U.S. citizen, regardless of their parents' citizenship status. It's been in place for more than 150 years. But now, in a 6-3 split, the conservative majority ruled that President Trump can move forward with implementing his birthright citizenship change, except for those who brought the case, the 22 states and a group of pregnant immigrant women who brought that case. So it's not directly getting at the 14th Amendment here, but this will have a nationwide impact. Let's go ahead and bring in our Devin Dwyer, ABC's senior Washington reporter, who's been following the Supreme Court on this. Devin, it's not as straightforward as I think a lot of people were perhaps expecting or hoping to hear. So break down what this actually means.
Well, this was a big surprise, Whit, and this is coming from the youngest conservative justice on the Supreme Court, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, 6-3, as you said, in a big win for Donald Trump, saying he can move forward with that executive order that he issued on day one, changing the definition of citizenship in this country. Practically speaking, it means the president can, in the next 30 days, begin to develop guidelines for how he would implement that. It does not mean, however, Whit, that this executive order is free from future legal challenge. Legal cases in 3 different districts will continue on the merits. The Supreme Court, in oral argument in this matter, did signal that it was skeptical that it could stand up to legal muster. But at this point, the court is really weighing in on the ability of individual judges in districts around the country to block a president's action nationwide. And what Justice Barrett said today is that an individual federal court judge does not have that authority to broadly block a president. The judge, he or she, can block an individual while a case is being litigated, and in this case, that was upheld. So, this order, as it's implemented, cannot apply to those 22 states. It's going to be messy. It cannot apply to those particular pregnant women that are challenging this. But elsewhere in the country, and at the very least in the planning stages, the president can move forward, and that is a significant and surprising win for him, Whit.
It sure is. Devin Dwyer, thank you. Please stand by for a moment, because I think it's worth going back to the language here in the 14th Amendment, again, ratified after the Civil War, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Of course, the Trump administration trying to make changes to that. That's what triggered these series of lawsuits and then ended back at the Supreme Court. Let's bring in our ABC News legal contributor, Sarah Isgur, because, Sarah, many are going to be asking now, where does the process go from here in getting back to the root of that question in the 14th Amendment?
Right. This was only about whether the district judge could enjoin the enforcement of that nationwide. What we'll now see is the actual question of what the 14th Amendment means, whether a president acting alone without Congress, without an amendment to the Constitution, can change our understanding of how we've implemented that for the last 150 years. That question will go back to the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett, in her majority opinion, making clear this decision has nothing to do with the merits of that legal question. The Supreme Court can prevent enforcement of that executive order nationwide. I expect we'll hear more about the merits of that question in the fall. As you read it, the real legal question is on what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means. Is someone who is in the country unlawfully subject to the laws of our country, like a diplomat would not be subject to the laws. At the time of the 14th Amendment, someone who belonged on tribal lands was not subject to our laws. So that's the question that the justices will now have to look at in the fall.
Sarah, thank you. I want to go back to Devin Dwyer. Devin, we're getting more on the dissent. Of course, again, as we pointed out, this was a 6-3 majority decision. So what are we hearing from the liberal justices on the court?
This one did break along ideological lines, Whit, and Justice Sonia Sotomayor, we are told, is taking the rare step of reading her dissent aloud in the chamber behind me right now. And she has said in her written opinion that this is a gross mistake by the Supreme Court. In her words, she warns that no right is safe now in this country. She had hypothesized with that if a president in the future, say a Democratic president, decided to issue an order seizing everyone's guns in this country, in her view, that would be lawful until it was struck down by the Supreme Court, that an injunction by a federal judge would not have effect. So a pretty striking statement by the senior liberal. She says that this is really going to upset the apple cart in a whole bunch of cases right now around the country. And we should point out, Whit, that the implications of this decision are going to be quite significant and take some time to figure out. The court today, in saying that individual judges cannot block a president's policy nationwide, will apply to lots of other cases involving Donald Trump, from some of his immigration policies to some of those freezes on federal funding to mass layoffs at federal agencies. Judges have blocked those things on a universal basis, and some of those orders may now need to be rolled back or eliminated with.
And as you pointed out, implementing all of this will be really complicated in the coming days. I do want to go to our chief political correspondent, Rachel Scott, who's joining us now from the White House. And Rachel, just for perspective, from the White House here, I want to go to this quote from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. This was back in February when she was explaining this. She said the administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. So that's really at the heart of all of this.
It is at the heart of all of this, and this is something that the president campaigned on. It was once considered this sort of fringe theory years ago. It's something that President Donald Trump campaigned on and that the Republican Party has embraced. We have not heard directly yet from the administration or from the president himself on this, but I could tell you I can imagine they're going to be very satisfied by what they are hearing in this news from the Supreme Court, because for them, this is, of course, much broader than just this issue of birthright citizenship. This administration and the president's top officials have long argued that these district court judges have too much power, that they should not be allowed to block things that the president campaigned on, that they believe the American people elected him to do and to carry out. And birthright citizenship is one of those things. But also, as Devin did mention there are a series of other things that have been challenged and blocked by some of these lower court judges when it comes to the president's other immigration policies, even some of these freezes that we have seen within the federal government. And so the question now, and what this administration will be looking at, is how broad can this go potentially? Does that mean that some of those other issues will now have to be rolled back? But when we're talking about on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, we know that is something that, of course, will continue to come up and could very well find itself in front of the Supreme Court again. And while the administration feels firm about this, as you just read from the press secretary right there, they do feel good about their legal standing on the issue of the constitutionality of birthright citizenship. You did hear from some of the conservative justices on the bench during these oral arguments, including Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was skeptical of just how exactly that could go into effect, raising some concerns about it. But again, this was not necessarily on the merits of that issue, at least for now, Whit.
Yeah, that's the thing. The long-term path, still a lot of questions and unknown. Rachel Scott for us, thank you. I want to bring in ABC's Maria Villarreal, joining us now from Dallas. Maria, I know you've been speaking with immigration attorneys and advocates. This is going to leave a lot of families in limbo.
You know, Whit, at this point, immigration attorneys are saying, listen, this feels like we are splitting the baby. And obviously, we're talking about the merits of, universal injunctions, not necessarily the merits of the case when it comes to birthright citizenship. That being said, most people out there don't really understand the difference between these two. And so this could create a lot of fear in immigrant communities. And that's what they're most concerned about, is the ripple effect, the potential here. Because no doubt the administration is going to see this as a win for them. It's going to push them to move forward, not just on immigration, but other big issues as well, and really, try to get to the community and saying, listen, this is a win for us and a loss for you guys, so you might as well just go ahead and fall in line. Nonprofit organizations right now are trying to get the word out, trying to educate people in these immigrant communities that this is not an absolute loss for them, especially when it has to do with birthright citizenship. But their big concern is if communities feel like this is a loss, we might see more protesting. We might see more issues within these communities because it is creating fear.
Maria Villarreal for us and our entire team, thank you. Once again, in a 6-3 split decision, the conservative majority ruling that President Trump can move forward in implementing his birthright citizenship change. However, questions still remain about the 14th Amendment and what that could mean in terms of the constitutionality going forward. So we will wait to see how that plays out. This is the final day of the Supreme Court's term, and there will be more decisions coming out later today. We will bring them all to you as our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com, and then I'll be back with our entire team here on World News Tonight this evening. For now, we'll send you back to regular programming. I'm Whit Johnson in New York. Have a good day.
And we have continuing coverage now after the Supreme Court just released that landmark decision impacting the future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. The decision allows President Trump to move forward with plans to limit U.S. citizenship only to children born on American soil to lawful permanent residents. The ruling also more broadly limits the ability of individual judges to single-handedly block a presidential policy nationwide. But the justices didn't rule on whether the birthright citizenship order itself is constitutional. Let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, and legal contributor James Sample for more on this. Rachel, what does this do now in terms of being able to move forward with this executive order? This doesn't now mean that birthright citizenship is no longer in the U.S., but it's sort of laying the groundwork for the White House to move forward.
Exactly, Diane. And I think this is very important here because we want to be clear in what the Supreme Court weighed in on. The Supreme Court was taking up this central question about whether a lower court judge has the ability to block this part of the president's policy and his agenda. The Supreme Court was not weighing in on the particular question of whether the president's push to end birthright citizenship is constitutional. And so what the Supreme Court does decide here is that they do clear this path for the president to move forward with plans to try to end birthright citizenship in this country. And this does have broader implications here because we know this is just one of many issues that lower court district judges have weighed in on. They've weighed in on a series of things when it comes to immigration, not just birthright citizenship, also asylum cases. When we're talking about the federal government, some of the hiring freezes that we've seen here in Washington, D.C. as well. We've seen those lower court district judges block those as well. So from the administration perspective, the White House officials behind me, they're going to be looking at just how broad can this go? What are the larger implications? Will some of those other rulings now have to be rolled back? And Diane, I will tell you, we're getting reaction in just now from the administration. We're actually hearing from Attorney General Pam Bondi for the first time. She says in a statement on social media, quote, "Today, the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump." She goes on to compliment the lawyers, which she calls excellent, from the Justice Department. She says the Justice Department will continue to defend the president's policies so that he can implement them. And again, that's the basis of what we're talking about here. The administration firmly believes that lower court judges should not be able to weigh in and block the president's policies that he was elected on. And so going forward, this issue of whether or not birthright citizenship itself is constitutional, that could still make its way up to the Supreme Court. And during the oral arguments, we heard from some of the conservative justices on the bench. They did appear skeptical of that argument, asking a lot of questions on how exactly that would be implemented, Diane.
And I want to go to Devin Dwyer, who covers the Supreme Court for us, has been following this step by step. Devin, what does this mean in those jurisdictions where these injunctions were issued?
Well, it means that the injunctions will still stand, Diane, in those places with respect to those plaintiffs. To take a step back, the way it works in all different types of courts, state courts and federal courts, is if you're injured and you go in, a judge can give relief to the person who's been injured. And in this case today, in the simplest terms, Justice Barrett said, courts can only provide relief, only stay injunctions to people who are injured. And so in those districts, the individual pregnant women who were challenging this executive order are protected. That has not changed today. The Supreme Court, if they have their babies, they will be citizens. Justice Barrett wrote that explicitly in her opinion. But what about people that didn't bring a challenge? What about any pregnant person who's a non-citizen in any state, anywhere? Justice Barrett said that went too far. Only the Supreme Court can issue nationwide blocks on a presidential policy. And as we've been saying, this is not the final word on whether or not this executive order is constitutional, whether it's lawful, Diane. It will make its way back up here to the Supreme Court. There's no doubt about that. It may take a while, but in the meantime, the president can move forward with implementing his policy. And as Justice Barrett puts it in her opinion, that could get quite messy. But that's up to the states and up to the government to figure out how to solve that, Diane.
And I want to bring in our correspondent, Maria Villarreal, who's been on the front lines of ongoing immigration issues for us. Maria, how are immigration attorneys and other advocates reacting to this?
You know, I think right now, they're trying to sift through what exactly this means. I mean, the opinion is over 100 pages long. And, listen, there's a lot of legalese in it. But for them, immediately their bigger concern is that, yes, it does seem like this could be a win for the administration because basically, the justices are saying you can move forward on the injunction part of this, on the planning part of this, but it doesn't get to the heart of what the case is all about, which is birthright citizenship. That being said, most people don't recognize that and understand the process here. So the bigger concern for both immigration attorneys and nonprofit organizations is this could really create chaos in the next 30 days or so. And not just for immigrant communities, Diane, but we're talking about, the people who will be affected by this directly, hospitals for what. I mean, this will put a huge burden on those, organizations like hospitals that are going to have to directly deal with this exact issue. How exactly is the administration going to put this all together? And how are they going to do it within 30 days? So I think right now this is about trying to get to these communities and the stakeholders, explaining to them that this is not over just yet. Yes, this has ramifications within the legal system and a ripple effect, when it comes to injunctions. But when it comes to birthright citizenship, there is still a lot more to discuss here.
And we now have a statement from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. I'm going to read just part of this. She says, today, the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. She goes on to say a little bit later, this Department of Justice will continue to zealously defend POTUS's policies and his authority to implement them. So, James, what happens now? These individual plaintiffs still have this injunction. Are we going to see every pregnant person here, undocumented, now suing the courts? How does this move forward now? That
sounds like a crazy scenario, the way you frame the question, but it's actually a distinct possibility. And I draw there from a portion of the oral argument transcript back when this case was argued before the Supreme Court. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said, jurisdiction is about power over subject and person. Subject meaning the entire topic, not limiting the remedy only to complaining parties. The Solicitor General, John Sauer, representing the Trump administration's position before the court, said, the remedy is only to the plaintiff who is before the court. That is a feature, not a bug of our system, that relief is limited to the parties before them. Justice Sotomayor responded to that statement by saying, assume that on the merits you are wrong, meaning assume that your position on birthright citizenship is wrong. If that's assumed, how do we get to that result on your view of the rules? Assume you're wrong. Does every single person who's affected by the executive order have to bring their own suit? In other words, Justice Sotomayor's question is your question. Yeah. How do we get to that rule? And Solicitor General Sauer started by answering Rule 23, which is class action status. That's the process of certifying a class. District courts are reluctant to have to go into the thicket of certification of a class, especially when we're talking about individuals who have not yet been born, mothers who are pregnant. The logistics, the practicalities of class certification for this kind of an issue are daunting, to say the least.
But that does seem like the path forward. If they want broad release, they're going to have to bring a class action suit.
Exactly.
Rachel, again, this doesn't now mean that birthright citizenship is over in the U.S., but it does give the administration permission, essentially, to move forward. So what does that look like? What is it they're going to be putting into place now?
Well, I can imagine that the administration will feel very emboldened coming out of this. They will definitely feel as if the Supreme Court is on their side, at least on this issue of them pursuing and trying to implement birthright citizenship. But also during these oral arguments, again, you had the conservative justices on the bench really leave some clues about some questions that they could have if this issue of the merits of birthright citizenship comes before the Supreme Court, as we do expect eventually one day it actually will. And during those oral arguments, we heard from Justice Brett Kavanaugh really questioning, okay, well, how will this go into effect? What happens in hospitals? How do doctors respond? How do states actually implement this? And so I can imagine now coming out of this too, you'll have the administration and the Justice Department really going back through a lot of those questions and trying to get their ducks in a row for if this issue comes before the Supreme Court yet again. But broadly speaking here, the administration right now will also likely be looking at other issues, other cases that were blocked by lower district court judges, and really be trying to see how broad this ruling from the Supreme Court is and whether or not it applies to those as well, Diane.
And James, what does that process now look like in terms of, this was a ruling about nationwide injunctions and the constitutionality of those. How do we then get to, is the order itself constitutional?
Well, it's a good question, and as Devin said, that process is going to take some time. It is going to take some time to brief the merits, as they say, and really consider, when we talk about birthright citizenship, it's in the 14th Amendment, and the controlling judicial precedent from the Supreme Court is a decision, wait for it, from 1898. So we're talking about uninterrupted constitutional precedent of the Supreme Court for 127 years, and that's dated from the decision, not from the amendment itself. It's going to take some time. And, Justice Sonia Sotomayor is still reading her dissent. This is an extraordinary thing in the Supreme Court when it takes this long to reading aloud the dissent. It's a sort of tradition and a form of indicating that you're not just dissenting, but you're angry. And in her written dissent, one of the passages that is pretty profound and speaks to the scale and scope of this decision, she writes, quote, "The rule of law is not a given in this nation, nor any other. It is a precept of our democracy that will endure only if those brave enough in every branch," I think that's a nod to Congress, fights for its survival.
So, Murray, what does this mean for immigrant families now?
I think that this is really going to exacerbate what we've already seen, right? Obviously, when it came to the due process situation that we're seeing play out in immigration courts and in check-in facilities, people are becoming more and more wary of where the law is, where we stand in this country when it comes to, migrant families, immigrant families, and not just that, but also where they stand when it comes to the rule of law just in general, right? Exactly what Sotomayor is talking about. The idea that this could impact birthright citizenship is a major concern for immigrant families. There's already a lot of fear that is being created by what we're seeing play out right now in courts. I think that this, from what we've heard from nonprofit organizations, this is likely going to create even more fear. So if we're already seeing people, pulling back, hiding from not just, their courts and the law and the government, I think we're going to see more of that. Right now, these nonprofit organizations, these immigration attorneys, they're trying to come out and immediately start educating people on what exactly this one opinion means and really how it impacts, a very specific group of people, because we still haven't fought the good fight is what they are saying. We still have, to go through the merits of the case. But that, I think we're really going to see a lot of immigrant families be very concerned about where this could go. I think we could see a lot of people doing what we've already seen being done, self-deporting because they are living in fear, because they don't want to go through the pain of this. this. I also think, Diane, this could really lead to more protesting, more frustration and anger from immigrant communities. We've already seen this play out in Los Angeles and other places like Chicago, even here in Texas as well, Austin, Houston, Dallas, people being very concerned about what is happening in their own communities and rising up against that. I think that there is a big possibility that as we see the administration start to put their plan in place when it comes to this specific issue of birthright citizenship, I really do think we could see that also play out, that also become a part of the community rising up and showing their frustrations.
So, Rachel, what are you watching for from the administration on this now?
You know, really, Diane, and when we talk about birthright citizenship and the end of this was once considered sort of a fringe theory, right, that maybe politicians once in a while floated out there. This is something that the president did campaign on. He took action on this on his first day of his presidency. And from the administration's perspective, they have long held this argument that lower court judges should not weigh in on the very issues that the president campaigned and promised the American people that he was going to do. They see this as the president carrying out his vision for the country that the American people elected him to do. They're going to be looking at how broad this is. We have not heard from the president just yet and still waiting for a statement from the White House press secretary. We did reach out to them, but this is something that I've heard from administration officials when it comes to the merits of this case, that this administration is ready to defend, and they feel very confident about the legal standing of the merits of birthright citizenship overall. But again, for our viewers, as Maria was pointing out, I think it is really important to talk about these two different distinctions of what we are talking about here, that the Supreme Court not weighing in just yet on the constitutionality of that may take a while to ultimately come back before those justices. But this is really about whether these lower court judges can actually block the president's policies and rulings. And this could obviously have a lot bigger and broader implications for other things that have come before lower district court judges as well. I will say this, the president did campaign on a very sweeping agenda. And so for the Justice Department and for the administration, they have been very busy. They've kept their hands full trying to defend all the president's policies and the slew and the series of executive orders that the president has signed, that he's moved forward to implement, and he did so quickly. How this all turns out and which ones ultimately remain and hold still remains to be seen, but there is definitely a lot of confusion that can be sparked when we're talking about so many different issues here, the constitutionality and the merits of the birthright citizenship itself versus whether or not these lower court district judges can actually take this action to block it. The Supreme Court saying for now they should be able to weigh in on something like that.
And we're also getting breaking news on another big ruling we've been watching. The Supreme Court is ruling on this question of whether a task force appointed under the Affordable Care Act is constitutional. This is a task force that decides which medical preventative services have to be provided to the American public at no charge. The court is holding that the appointment of those task force members is consistent with the Constitution, but that those task force members can be removed at will by the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and that their recommendations about which preventative services should be included there are reviewable by the Secretary before they take effect. I want to bring James Sample back in for a little bit more on that. Unpack this for us, James.
Yeah, so this is the latest challenge in a series of challenges dating basically to the moment of the ink was dry on the Affordable Care Act, or so-called Obamacare. And the question in this case is the constitutionality of this government task force, this 16-member task force that mandates certain no-cost coverage for certain preventive health care procedures, i.e., if you are an insurance company that wants to do business under the Affordable Care Act, you're required to provide these preventative health measures at no cost, no copay, to the individuals that you insure. And the court here, in a victory for Obamacare, a victory for supporters of the Affordable Care Act, and maybe a bit of a loss for the administration that's a little bit murkier here because this isn't a particularly Trump administration specific measure. But this is a case.
Because it also gives more power to the executive branch.
Absolutely.
Right now, that's the Trump administration.
Absolutely. So the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration is the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration.
Right.
And so there is certainly the power, as they say, personnel is policy, right? And so constituting this panel is a big deal and will be a big deal. But in terms of the direct challenge, this was brought by a series of Christian-owned businesses that felt that these preventive measures were inconsistent with what they thought the law should be. Those challengers lost. This is a reversal of the lower court holding, which had ruled for those challengers.
And so what is the court saying here in terms of precedent and moving forward on this?
So this is a bit deep in the constitutional weeds, but the court is saying that these members of this task force, that their appointments are consistent with what's known as the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, and that they are inferior officers, i.e. that they answer to a superior, a principal officer. And that means that the constituting of this task force is constitutional. It does give the potential for the power to shape that task force is a significant thing. Elections have consequences. But in terms of a broader scope, this is a victory for what you might call the administrative state and the practicality of administering a massive, massive scheme like Affordable Care.
All right, James Sample, thank you. And we are still watching those Supreme Court decisions coming down. We're going to have a lot more on those two major rulings we've already received, plus the other decisions we're watching right after the break. Stay with us.
All across America.
Good morning. Hello.
Wherever we are.
It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
Hi. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we both never been. Growing up doesn't mean
Good morning. How are you?
At the start of the day, letting us into your home. Putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together.
Happy birthday.
Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
Sitting down with Barbara Walters.
I know you don't want to talk about guys, but how are you going to find anybody?
No one ever got out totally unscathed.
She asked the question
my God.
Nobody else had asked.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Walters.
I don't have an apology to give you or anyone else over the money that I've made.
Todd and Julie Chrisley, reality stars turned convicted criminals, but now free from prison after their daughter Savannah's successful mission to get them a presidential pardon. Now the interview, the pressing questions.
We're talking serious charges: bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. What, if anything, do you think you did wrong?
The Chrisleys, Life After Lockup, streaming this Sunday on Hulu and Disney+.
Tonight, the Supreme Court weighs in as President Trump tries to end birthright citizenship. Iran's leader says the U.S. exaggerated the damage done to its nuclear sites. The White House standing by President Trump's claims. World News Tonight with David Muir is the #1 newscast in America.
It was a kidnapping, torture case.
A crime of greed and cruelty.
The men tortured the victim by beating, tasing, and burning him.
And this is where it gets really horrible. The guy was cutting off my roommates. It was like a bad dream.
This crime was horrific.
He's a psychopath.
How could you possibly defend somebody like that?
This was a story about greed, sadism, evil.
Wicked Game, Devil in the Desert, only on Hulu.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, we are following the Supreme Court right now after two major decisions. First, the landmark decision impacting the future of birthmark citizenship in the U.S. This decision allows President Trump to move forward with plans to limit U.S. citizenship only to children born on American soil to lawful permanent residents. Now, the ruling also more broadly limits the ability of individual judges to single-handedly block a presidential policy nationwide. But I do want to be clear here, the justices did not rule on whether the birthright citizenship order itself is constitutional. That will be for a later decision. We also have a major ruling supporting the constitutionality of a task force that decides what preventative health care services insurance companies have to cover at no cost to the patient. Let's bring in senior political correspondent Rachel Scott and ABC News legal contributor, Hofstra Law professor James Sample for more. So, James, just let's start with the birthright citizenship order. This is a tricky one because the justices aren't saying it is constitutional for the president to limit birthright citizenship only to certain people born in this country, but they are saying local judges can't block this nationwide.
That's exactly right, Diane. I think that the lexicon here, the vocabulary, really does matter. So universal or nationwide injunctions have been issued by a number of federal district court judges on a range of topics for decades. And the idea of the lexicon is a universal injunction bars a defendant from doing a thing or forces a defendant to do a certain thing everywhere. That's the universal aspect across the nation. So the federal district court judges, isolated federal district court judges in their districts around the country, viewed this executive order, had plaintiffs who came before those courts and said, is this constitutional? And instead of just ruling that it was unconstitutional as applied to those particular plaintiffs challenging the birthright citizenship executive order, the court said, this is unconstitutional and the policy is enjoined, prohibited from going into effect nationwide. Today, the Supreme Court of the United States said individual federal district court judges, although they've done this, again, on a range of topics over the years, don't have that power to do that anymore. These universal nationwide injunctions exceed the equitable powers of individual federal district court judges.
So going forward, plaintiffs either need to individually bring their cases. So in this case, let's say every pregnant woman in the country, undocumented, would have to bring their own case, or you have to establish a class action lawsuit.
That's right. So one of the questions that was a focal point at oral argument is this idea of whether the jurisdiction of those judges is over both the subject matter or just over the subject matter as applied to the persons who were bringing those cases. So what seems to be the way out of this, if you will, the way to have the Constitution mean the same thing across the country, would seem to be the class action certification process. Now, the downside of that from a practical level is that it is an additional hurdle that the district courts will have to go through, plaintiffs will have to go through, the idea of certifying a putative class of people you've never met, particularly in the context of pregnancies, which obviously have a finite period of time. It's going to be complex. The court, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, writing for the majority today, essentially said, yeah, we're going to have to figure that out, but we're not going. We don't have an answer to some of those practical questions yet. But on the level of whether this nationwide injunction practice can continue, the court says no.
Rachel, what does this mean for this executive order now?
Yeah, so going forward, as of right now, the administration can move forward with plans to try to implement the president's executive order to end birthright citizenship. But this is an issue that almost certainly is going to come back before the Supreme Court, because we will see challenges on the merits of this and whether or not it is constitutional. The question is, how long does that take? But for now, the administration is going to be calling this a win. They do see this as a victory. In my conversations with administration officials, they have made it absolutely clear that they do not believe that any lower district court judge should be allowed to block things that the president campaigned on, that they believe the American people elected the president to carry out. This is one of them. One thing that the administration also is going to be looking at here, Diane, is possibly the broader implications of all of this, because this is not the only case that has been blocked by lower district court judges. There has been a series of executive orders that the president has implemented. We've been on the air talking about them as the president swiftly signs these, but they have been challenged. They face numerous challenges. And so one thing the administration will be looking to see is whether or not this could be applied more broadly to those other rulings. And again, just for our viewers here, and I think it's very important that you pointed this out at the very top, what this case actually means. We were talking about here from the justices this decision on whether or not this can be blocked by a lower district court judge, not necessarily whether or not ending birthright citizenship is constitutional. That is a separate matter that will likely come again before the Supreme Court at a different time. And it is worth saying, during the oral arguments, which I did listen to, even some of the conservative justices on the bench did appear very skeptical and had a lot of questions about that. And so the administration, I can imagine going forward, preparing for a possible other case on this, is going to be looking at some of those questions and trying to get some answers so they could deliver on that should this arise back to the Supreme Court, Diane.
Yeah, it's an important distinction that I think we should keep emphasizing here. The justices ruling that a district judge cannot block this executive order nationwide is not the same as the justice's ruling that the order itself is constitutional. That will be left to a future legal decision. But in the meantime, James, this does have a larger impact, and I want to pull on that point that Rachel just made. You've got injunctions on federal worker layoffs, on funding freezes, on certain deportation protocols. What does this mean for those other Trump policies now that were under a nationwide injunction?
Well, it's a great question, Diane, and Rachel's point is very well taken, which is to say that the Trump administration is certainly celebrating this ruling, not just because of birthright citizenship, but because of all of the other flexing of executive powers and policies that they've had that have been challenged and that have been stayed by the courts on a nationwide basis in some instances. And Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in her dissent, zeroed in on this particular topic today. She writes, "No right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates. Today, the threat is birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship." Her point is that those are rights that, because we take them for granted, would normally be the subject of a nationwide injunction if those policies were attempted to be implemented. Her point is essentially that there are instances in which a nationwide injunction means that the Constitution is a meaningful thing and it means the same thing everywhere. That may no longer be the case because of today's ruling.
Are we going to now see a flood of cases enter the legal system because of this?
I think in the near term, we're going to see an increase in the volume of cases because individual plaintiffs are going to have to bring them. You're not going to have, in a sense, the efficiency of answering the question once, then appealing it to the Court of Appeals and maybe to the Supreme Court. So yeah, you're going to see a volume of, in some instances, duplicative litigation in the various districts that's essentially identical.
It hands a lot more power to the executive branch. So does this other major ruling that I also want to get to on the Affordable Care Act. The justices had to decide if this task force that gets to determine which healthcare services are considered preventative and have to be provided to patients at zero cost, whether that task force was constitutional. The justices are saying yes, and essentially that task force is at the complete discretion of the Health and Human Services Secretary.
That's exactly right. And so the challenge in this case was to the composition and the discretion that this task force has to establish rules. So the Affordable Care Act is a massive piece of legislation, but there are a variety of very technical and very specific aspects that the legislation package leaves to the kind of administrative process to implement. This task force is an example of those administrative technicalities that are very, very important to millions and millions of people. In this instance, the task force established a list, essentially a battery of tests and procedures that you are required as an insurance company who participates under the Affordable Care Act to provide at no cost to individuals, no copay, preventative care, screenings, and procedures.
When you go, you get a physical, you walk out of the office, no copay, no nothing.
Exactly. And so this 16-member task force established the list of those procedures that where that policy would apply. The challengers, a group of Christian-based organizations and businesses who felt that this policy was unconstitutional, brought a challenge. The lower courts ruled in favor of the challenge. Today, the court said the constituting of this committee, these task force members, it is consistent with the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, meaning that the challenge to the Affordable Care Act in this regard fails, but that the Health and Human Services Secretary does have a lot of power in terms of constituting that task force.
What kind of precedent and big picture impact do you see that case having?
I think that case has a big picture impact that goes beyond the topic of the Affordable Care Act and really is about the administrative state. You know, the Congress doesn't have, in our system, we have, you know, sort of the Sesame Street version of civics, right? We have 3 branches of government, but the reality is there's a 4th branch of government that is in some respects the biggest in terms of volume of all, and that's the administrative agencies that Congress puts, you know, the Organic Act that creates these, and then they're lodged in the executive branch. Those administrative agencies carry out a lot of policy and a lot of practical purposes. And they need power, they need some discretion in order to operate.
All right, James, thank you so much. We'll have a lot more news for you right after the break. Stay with us.
across America.
Good morning. Hello.
Wherever we are.
Welcome. It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
Hi. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we've both never been. Growing up doesn't mean
Good morning. How are you?
At the start of the day, letting us into your home. Putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together. Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
Success is the... Hold on. I just had it.
Unless everything changes, this restaurant needs to officially cease operations.
Because keeping it open would be like
beating a dead horse before you throw it off a cliff.
We get it. I think we get it.
Showtime!
Try to keep up, yeah?
Walk like a G. There you go, Neil.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, a cafe is bringing Americans to Paris without boarding a flight. In this segment, sponsored by Paris Baguette, we are taking a look at their seasonal snacks and fresh trending flavors. GMA contributor Jess Sims has the latest.
If you have dreams of a French getaway this summer, but you don't feel like packing a bag, I think I have a solution for you.
Enter our sponsor, Paris Baguette, a neighborhood cafe offering a taste of Europe, but in your backyard. My search for a Parisian quick fix brought me to their Montvale, New Jersey location.
Welcome.
Where I met their CEO, Darren Tipton.
When people come in here, how do you want them to feel?
Well, I always say we're the wonderland of bakeries. Our mission is really to spread joy for our high-quality baked and brewed goods that we're making fresh throughout the day. We're reestablishing the Neighborhood Bakery Cafe as the heart of the community. We're fast approaching 250 cafes across 27 states. We'll be in all 50. And we have a plan to open 100 cafes this year on our goal of 1,000 by 2030.
How are you today? That sense of community is brought to life through employees like General Manager Tuesday Almazar.
What I love most is interacting with our guests. It's great knowing their names, knowing their faces as they walk in.
And now Paris Baguette is baking up some sweet treats for the summer. Chief Marketing Officer Kathy Chavanez gave me all the details.
This is our summer seasonal menu. It's all about strawberry and pistachio. We have our strawberry pistachio fraisier cake, a delicious bomboloni, supreme croissants, mochi donuts, and also beverages as well.
Why did y'all decide to focus on those two flavors?
Pistachio is trending right now, and then strawberry is so seasonal. So we wanted to bring these flavors together for our guests. So I think it's time to get a little taste test going.
I think that's the best idea you've had all day.
And why don't we do it with a blindfold, up the ante a little bit?
This is my dream job.
Oh my gosh, flaky a little bit, the pistachio bomboloni.
So close. This is the pistachio supreme croissant. So
I stuck with the flakiness and I said the bomboloni. What an amateur. That was a pillow, but the bomboloni.
Pistachio mascarpone cream, fresh strawberry.
I have no shame. I have no shame whatsoever.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's real.
Kathy, this cake, you get the pistachio notes, the cream, the strawberry.
Our strawberry pistachio fraisier cake is our cake of the summer.
Wow.
And so we can cheers that with our pistachio lattes.
All of this incredible food, I feel like I've been to Paris and I didn't even have to get on a plane.
Our thanks to Jess Sims and our sponsor, Paris Baguette, for that. I'm Diane Macedo. The news never stops, and neither do we. We have a lot more news right after the break. Stay with us.
whenever news breaks.
We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
In rolling forward, this tornado tore through this town.
First in Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere.
Reporting from Harvard University, I'm Selena Wang. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. Welcome to ABC News Live. First, let's get right to some breaking news. At the Supreme Court, the court's handing down a range of landmark decisions on its final day of the term. The justices just issued a ruling supporting the right of parents to opt kids out of discussions surrounding LGBTQ-themed books in the classroom. The justices are also ruling to allow President Trump to move forward with plans to limit birthright citizenship in the U.S. Now, that decision also more broadly limits the ability of individual judges to single-handedly block a presidential policy nationwide. But this is important here. The justices did not rule on whether that birthright citizenship order itself is constitutional. That will be for a future legal decision. And we also have a major decision supporting the constitutionality of the task force that decides what preventative health care services insurance companies have to cover at no cost to the patient. A lot to unpack here. Let's bring in our senior Washington reporter, Devin Dwyer, legal analyst James Sample, our White House correspondent Karen Travers, and Maria Villarreal, who covers immigration for us. Karen, start us off because I know President Trump just issued a statement on this birthright citizenship ruling.
He did, and no surprise, Diane. He is calling it a giant win in the United States Supreme Court. The president says congratulations to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Solicitor General, and the entire Justice Department. Diane, the president also said he is going to be taking some questions at the White House within the next hour, so we'll have a chance to hear his reaction directly on this big case. We heard also from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, in a statement. She said that the Supreme Court has instructed these district courts to stop what she called the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. She said the Justice Department, under her watch, will continue to zealously defend the president's policies and his authority to implement them. Diane, this was a big win for the administration, for the president at the Supreme Court. He has repeatedly expressed his frustration with these district judges who he has said have too much power to block his agenda and the policy he's tried to put in place through these executive orders. And this is one he did on his first day in office in this second term.
Devin, walk us through the immediate impact here, because this doesn't mean that birthright citizenship is over in the U.S., but that the administration can now move forward and also could impact other nationwide injunctions.
Yes, this is not the end of the road, Diane, for the legal challenge to Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship, which has been in place in this country for 100 years, backed up by 3 Supreme Court precedents. The court explicitly said today in its opinion that it was making no statement on the policy itself. This was really about the ability of these individual judges in individual states to block something nationwide. Practically speaking, it means Donald Trump can move forward now in most places with beginning to make plans for how he would do this, how he would determine when a child is born in a hospital, what type of citizen it would be. Would that child be a U.S. citizen? Does it belong somewhere else? What if it's a stateless child? None of those regulations have been written. How would those parents have to provide papers at the hospital to prove who they are? None of that has been decided. So for the next 30 days now with this Supreme Court decision, the administration can start to do that. And after that, Diane, I would expect another round of legal challenges. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, in his concurring opinion today, said there are other avenues to bring challenges to this policy once it's been written and implemented. So this fight will continue. But for now, what this administration really wanted was some handcuffs on these lower court judges, which in their view have gone way too far in blocking many of the president's policies.
Maria, now that these injunctions only apply to those specific plaintiffs, are we going to see a flood of new cases enter the court system?
You know, Diane, that's a great question. I just got off the phone a few minutes ago with several immigration attorneys. They want to make it very clear that at this point, right, this particular case doesn't have to do with birthright citizenship. It will in the future, as you just mentioned a little bit ago. But for now, this is about nationwide injunctions and the ripple effect it could have. The concern for immigration attorneys more specifically is this is really going to deter people from getting the representation that they need in courts, because really that costs money. The idea that a nationwide injunction would be put in place, right, and that this could, obviously impact thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people when it came to whether it's birthright citizenship or other immigration issues. I mean, that saved a lot of people a lot of money and time to go into court themselves. What these attorneys are now saying is that this will definitely cause friction in the court system. It'll become even more chaotic and messy when it comes to this particular issue than what we've already seen in place. People will have to then, on a case-by-case basis, or really, from region to region, have to then file their own cases to make sure that they are protected moving forward, on any issue, not just immigration. So there is definitely a big cause for concern within the legal system of how this will considerably slow down the process. And then on the other side of this, they are very worried that this could definitely create more fear in immigrant communities.
And James, we also have these two other major decisions, one supporting parental rights to opt kids out of discussions of LGBTQ-themed books in the classroom, and then the other supporting the constitutionality of this task force that decides which medical care preventative services we need to be provided as Americans at no cost. Walk us through the impacts of those.
Well, in the case of the so-called Maryland parental opt-out case, you're talking about parents who objected on religious grounds to their children being exposed as part of the public school curriculum to books, a so-called story hour that included LGBTQ themes or LGBTQ individuals. For example, a same-sex married couple appearing as characters in the book. The parents are victorious in that case. They are allowed to have their children opt out of particular books and sort of policies and school educational policies that are in conflict with their religious views. That is a huge victory for the Christian right. It is a huge victory for those who believe that merely being exposed to ideas with which they disagree is a grounds for religious objection. So that is going to take a significant amount of work to implement, because where do you draw the line? What counts as a religious objection? What doesn't count? How involved are parents going to be in setting the school curriculum now as opposed to school boards, which parents have the power to influence, but now they're going to be able to essentially have a veto power. And in the case of the insurance companies, this is a victory for millions of Americans who are used to, at this point, going to the doctor for certain preventative health care measures, not having to pay a copay, not having to get charged for it. The task force that has set out those particular procedures that are covered in that way was held to be constitutional.
But also at the discretion of the executive branch, the Health and Human Services Secretary. So we could see those, whatever the task force does, change now with each administration.
Absolutely, but there'll be some democratic accountability, because if the changes are dramatic, the individual citizens have the opportunity to, in a sense, vote out those with whom they disagree.
All right, Devin Dwyer, Karen Travers, Maria Rial, James Sample, thank you all. And we will bring you President Trump's news conference, expected to happen within the hour, live right here on ABC News Live First. Meanwhile, President Trump is rushing to get Congress to pass his big, beautiful bill before the 4th of July. The president's rallying Republicans at the White House and urging his supporters to call their Congress members. Now Senate Republicans are reworking key parts of that bill. Let's bring in ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill. Jay, two of the big issues here seem to be spending and Medicaid. What are you hearing from lawmakers on that front?
Yeah, there's this thing, Diane, called the Senate parliamentarian. And the way this bill is being compiled, all of its various sections have to be reviewed by the Senate parliamentarian. And if she and her office say that certain sections of this bill can't stay in because they don't comport with the necessary Senate procedure, then they're out. That's kind of in the weeds. But the point is that the Senate parliamentarian just just yesterday struck out significant provisions of this bill that relate to Medicaid and cuts to Medicaid, particularly Medicaid coverage for undocumented immigrants, in a part of this bill that wanted to punish states that extended Medicaid to those individuals, and something that's called the provider tax credit, which opponents of the way that it's currently worked in the bill say that the way it currently goes about, it would have a serious blow, rather, on rural hospitals and others in the health insurance community. And so the parliamentarian takes those sections out, not because of the political issues at play, but because she says they shouldn't be in the bill because of the way the Senate procedure is. Now Republicans are scrambling to rewrite those sections and potentially others to try to get them back in the bill, and it's delayed this process. John Thune, the top Republican in the Senate, wanted this bill to be introduced perhaps even yesterday, but definitely today, and tee it up for a vote at some point over the weekend. And it's now very much unclear if they can rewrite those various sections and actually get this bill to be introduced today and vote on it by the weekend, so it could go back to the House and be, in theory, passed out of the House, despite the fact that there's a razor-thin majority there, and be on President Trump's desk by that desired July 4th deadline.
Jay, there are still a handful of Republicans not on board here. Are there kind of smaller sticking points in there? What are they most worried about?
I mean, Medicaid has been one of the sticking points. There have been some Republicans, although it's unclear if he's fully on board with some of these changes. But Josh Hawley is a good example who has said he doesn't like the way this bill handles Medicaid. In particular, he doesn't like the section on the provider tax credit that he says is going to have a serious impact on hospitals in his state of Missouri, for instance. There are some other Republicans who don't like the other grab bag of issues in here. The Rand Pauls of the world have an issue with the fact that this legislation raises the debt ceiling and things to that effect. John Thune can afford to lose 3 Republicans. If he gets 51 Republicans to vote for this, given the way that he's putting this on the floor, he can pass it. So he can have a little bit of dissent in his ranks. But what we've seen over the last few hours is various tweaks and changes to the bills, and frankly just conversations being had between Senate Republicans behind closed doors to try to make sure that if John Thune were to lose Senate Republicans, it would only be 2 to 3 potentially, and still give him the numbers to pass it. But we don't have a firm idea really of the no's and yeses in his column, because we don't have a fully locked bill text yet, Diane. We don't even know exactly what the language of this bill is going to be, because as I said, sections of it are still being rewritten right now as we speak.
All right, Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill, keeping a close eye on all of that for us. Jay, thank you. Defense lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs are delivering their closing arguments right now. Attorney Mark Agnifilo says the case is about domestic violence and not about sex trafficking, racketeering, or prostitution charges against Combs. He says Combs would have pleaded guilty if prosecutors had charged him with domestic violence. And he asked the jury to see the case as a great modern love story between Combs and Cassie Ventura. He called the relationship intense, loving, and says Ventura is not a victim. ABC's Rena Roy and legal contributor, trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer are outside court with more. Rena, what's the latest here?
Well, Diane, the defense came out swinging this morning, and it has really been sort of a theatrical closing argument from defense attorney Mark Agnifilo. He is pacing back and forth in front of the jury, mocking the government's case, making sarcastic comments at times. He said boxes of Astroglide, take him off the streets, which earned some laughs from his fellow defense attorneys. Agnifilo arguing that Combs committed no crimes. As he pointed out, he said that he may have been a domestic abuser, but that he's not guilty of what he is charged with here in this case. In fact, he said, quote, "Are you kidding me?" when referring to the prosecution's argument that Combs was the leader of a criminal enterprise. He took some time to introduce Combs's family, who is here to support him. They are in the gallery. He introduced them to the jury, and he called Combs an entrepreneur, a self-made man who now takes care of his people. And he pointed to Combs's ex-girlfriend, who testified under the pseudonym Jane. And Agnifilo said, "I hope she's having a nice day. I don't know what she's doing, but I know that she is doing it in a house that he paid for." Diane.
Brian, what stands out to you so far about how the defense is going about trying to raise reasonable doubt here?
Yeah, so I think for the first 45 minutes, maybe an hour, from Mark Agnifilo, for lack of a better term, and My style is very different than his. I would say it was somewhat folksy, but I think he was very personable in the way that he's communicating with the jurors. But after that 45, 60 minutes, he started bringing up pieces of evidence and omissions of facts within the testimony of the witnesses that I think started to raise a few eyebrows in this case. Talking about the fact that when Capricorn Clark said that she was kidnapped with a gun, for example, that when she told Kid Cudi that Sean Combs was coming, that she never told Kid Cudi that there was a gun, or at least Kid Cudi never articulated that on the stand. Also pointing to the fact that how could it be kidnapping of Capricorn Clark if she got to go home every day after those 5 long days of going through a polygraph, making the analogy that is the jury being kidnapped because they have to stay at court for very long periods of time and then go home. But one thing that I will say I noticed about Sean Combs throughout the testimony or out the closing arguments, he seems to be a little nervous. You can see him, his leg kind of tapping up and down and his tapping his hands, but he seems to be following and nodding with the case, especially when Mark Anipolo said that he's no coward.
Brian, this seems to center a lot on these dual narratives. The prosecution trying to say these women were coerced when it comes to these hotel nights and freak-offs, and the defense trying to show a consensual relationship.
Yeah, Mark Anipolo started the closing arguments by saying that this case is a tale of 2 stories. One being the evidence, the testimony, what was shown in court, the other being what the government is portraying this case to be, and that being freak-offs and sex trafficking. Mark Anipolo, in his kind of way of describing Sean Combs and trying to humanize him, showed an enterprise that was one of a self-made black entrepreneur who started from nothing and made a $1 billion industry. But that government is portraying this as something different. And he's trying to poke holes in his own very personable, very theatrical way. Maybe not too theatrical. I think I've seen more theatrics from attorneys, but I think we're getting the Mark Anipolo personality that we often see as he walks into the courtroom and is relating to the jurors in some degree.
And Brian, to Agnifil's point, the prosecution has brought up clear allegations of domestic violence throughout the course of this case. The defense has admitted to those accounts, and now you have the defense attorney saying during closing, listen, if they had put this charge out there, Combs would have pled guilty to it. So why didn't the prosecution charge him with domestic violence?
Because they couldn't. It's a bit of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of argument. It's a number of things. One, the federal government doesn't charge state crimes of domestic violence like assault or strangulation or things that we saw in an Intercontinental video. Two, this is New York, in the Southern District of New York. They don't have jurisdiction in California where that alleged crime or crime happened, depending how you want to view it. And three, the statute of limitations for assault in most states, including California, is 2 years. So the SDNY wouldn't charge Sean Combs for that. They know they wouldn't. They know they couldn't. And so they're willing to admit to crimes that no one can prosecute him for, but fighting the charges that he is facing.
Interesting. Rena, when the defense finishes its closing, the prosecution then gets an hour to give a rebuttal. What are you watching for there?
Well, Diane, we know that prosecutor Maureen Comey will be delivering that rebuttal. We are expecting it to happen as early as this afternoon. And it's important to keep in mind that Comey is only allowed to refute what the defense has said. She is limited to that. She cannot go beyond the scope of what the defense is saying in their closing argument, so she can't bring up anything she might have perhaps forgotten in her original closing argument. We know that she is inside the courtroom listening very intently to this closing argument from Agnifilo. Diane.
All right, Rena Roy, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you both. And a reminder, Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense team says any sexual encounters were consensual. And for more on the trial, catch the ABC News Live show Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy. That's every night after the trial at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Authorities have identified 3 more victims in West Virginia's flash flooding. The death toll now stands at 9 over the past few weeks, and more heavy rain closed roads last night, including parts of the West Virginia Turnpike. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking the forecast for us. Ginger, what's the latest, especially in these areas?
Right, so this is the Turnpike right near Charleston, West Virginia. People were backed up on this for 8 hours overnight. No bathroom, they're very hungry. Thankfully got that out of there. And what happened, emergency manager confirmed confirmed that they had 5 inches of rainfall in just 45 minutes. That will cause flash flooding right away. We also had damaging wind and tornadoes reported all the way back to Iowa. And so it wasn't just the flash flooding, but also the hail and damaging wind. And I just wanted to point this out. All of the areas that you see with the blue dots, most of that was in a level 1 out of 5 yesterday. So when you see today's level 1 out of 5, that includes everybody from Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, right up through Atlanta, Raleigh, West Virginia, again, you still have a shot at those severe storms. And then the level 2 out of 5 is Toledo, Detroit, and back up into parts of North Dakota, South Dakota. Damaging wind's the main hazard, but you could see a little twist in there too. So just keep in mind that that's going to be through. And then on Saturday, wanted to bring this up only because we've got outdoor plans for the weekend, and level 2 out of 5 stays and includes Minneapolis now. But then if you're anywhere along I-95, all of New Jersey, up to Albany, down into Washington, D.C. and the Delmarva Peninsula, damaging wind again. So I just don't want that to come out of nowhere for you, because it's certainly something we're seeing in the modeling as we look at this. Now, behind that and kind of underneath what we call those ridge rider storms and the warm front, it's still real hot. So Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, Charlotte all still have those heat advisories up to Pittsburgh today. Diane.
All right, Ginger Z, thank you. And we have some breaking news on another Supreme Court decision. We'll have more on that when we come back.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands. It's a serial killer case.
This killer, he's the dumber you've never heard of.
More and more men are going missing, and then the lead broke the case open. They discovered the farm.
The whole place was so bizarre.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
The largest number of unidentified human remains, second only to the World Trade Center.
Not many people live to tell about their involvement with the serial killer.
Everything we know about this case comes from you.
Absolutely. Let's not do that. Ooh, I'm sorry. Never before a face-to-face interview with a camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. Only on Hulu.
I just walked in and she's laying on the bathroom floor and there's blood everywhere.
Mo had the potential to be one of the greatest bike racers of all time.
No one in cycling gets murdered. What the hell is going on?
Authorities have charged fellow cyclists with first-degree murder.
What is it like to hear that your daughter is a fugitive?
Tonight.
We're going to hear from the last people who saw Mariah alive.
2020, tonight at 9/8 Central on ABC.
I don't have an apology to give you or anyone else over the money that I've made.
Todd and Julie Chrisley, reality stars turned convicted criminals, but now free from prison after their daughter Savannah's successful mission to get them a presidential pardon. Now the interview, the pressing questions.
We're talking serious charges: bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. What, if anything, do you think you did wrong?
The Chrisleys, Life After Lockup, streaming this Sunday on Hulu and Disney+.
And we have breaking news. The Supreme Court just released a major decision supporting a state's right to require age verification for certain porn sites. The Supreme Court voted 6-3 to uphold the Texas law requiring websites to electronically verify a user's age if those sites include sexual material considered harmful to minors. Supporters say the law protects minors, but critics say the case has far-reaching First Amendment issues. Let's bring in ABC News legal contributor and Hofstra Law professor James Sample for more. James, walk us through what the justice had to consider with this one.
So Texas, like several states, had an age verification requirement for the viewing of online pornography where a website contained more than a third of the content was defined as obscene relative to minors. And so Texas's law was challenged by many organizations in the adult film and other content industries. The court today upheld Texas's right to impose that age verification requirement, and the court says, in a 6-3 decision, one of several 6-3 decisions today reflecting some deep divisions on the court, says that requiring proof of age is an ordinary and appropriate means of enforcing a policy. Age verification, the court says, is common when Laws draw age-based lines, whether obtaining a firearm or a driver's license. Obscenity, the court says, is no exception to that rule. And so the court says that while adults have a First Amendment right to view this content if they so choose, that the protection of children justifies the policy to require age verification, that the adults who have the right to view this content don't have a right to view it without verifying their age.
What's the impact here?
Well, the impact for the adult content industry is they're going to presumably see a decrease in business because many individuals will be concerned that providing the age verification would violate their privacy. There was a lot of discussion at oral argument about whether you can really do that on an anonymous basis. But I think that the real ramifications will be that in most states, laws like Texas had here are likely to be implemented because there is a strong interest, or at least a perceived strong interest, in preventing children from seeing that material.
Could this set a precedent elsewhere?
I think that this will set a precedent elsewhere in the sense that, I mean, this particular case applies to the Texas law, sure, but other states have provisions like this, and other states that don't have provisions like this will see the ruling, and I think there will be a significant groundswell of support for policies just like this.
But critics seem to be trying to argue that this could have other First Amendment implications.
Well, I think the critics are saying that there are some real privacy concerns here, that individuals don't want to have to reveal their identity, don't want to have to reveal facts about themselves, question whether it can really be, the age verification can really be anonymous. Those individuals, if they really want to view this content, are going to have to be willing to endure that now.
All right, James Sample, thank you. Coming up, Brad Pitt's new movie is opening today in theaters. Will Gans has more on that and what to watch this weekend.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today.
Off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines,
the ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal. Outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland. Let's go.
Here in France.
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Oh. Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere because the news never stops. America's #1 news, ABC News. Now streaming 24/7 on Disney+.
Tonight, the Supreme Court weighs in as President Trump tries to end birthright citizenship. Iran's leader says the U.S. exaggerated the damage done to its nuclear sites. The White House standing by President Trump's claims. World News Tonight with David Muir is the #1 newscast in America.
I don't have an apology to give you or anyone else over the money that I've made.
Todd and Julie Chrisley, reality stars turned convicted criminals, but now free from prison after their daughter Savannah's successful mission to get them a presidential pardon. Now the interview, the pressing questions.
We're talking serious charges: bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. What, if anything, do you think you did wrong?
The Chrisleys, Life After Lockup, streaming this Sunday on Hulu and Disney+. ABC's David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. More Americans watch World News Tonight with David Muir than any other newscast.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, Brad Pitt's highly anticipated new movie is officially out. F1 the movie is coming out as F1 racing is becoming more popular. But will that drive fans to theaters? See what I did there? Yeah. Will Gans has more on that and some other recommendations for you in your weekend watch. So, Will, what are critics saying about F1?
Well, they are saying that we should all be part of the pit crew. See, I've got some puns ready to go too.
If anyone can do it, it's you.
Listen, I think critics are saying that maybe it's a slightly predictable blockbuster summer movie, but it has all the trappings of everything that you want from a summer blockbuster movie. It's got Brad Pitt. It has the director of Top Gun Maverick. It has a score from Hans Zimmer. The race sequences are incredible. I am not an F1 fan, but I found myself like on the edge of my seat watching this the entire time. So if you are looking for something to see this on the biggest screen you can this weekend.
Race to the theater this weekend.
Oh, man. Changing gears now, though.
I'm leaving now. Oh, my gosh.
Let's talk about Squid Game Season 2, shall we? That is out this weekend. It's the final season of Squid Game. Of course, that show broke all the streaming records when its first season came out, and it wraps up today. All the episodes are streaming of Season 3. And if this is your kind of thing, it's a lot of the same type of, nasty, stressful.
It's not a feel-good.
Not at all.
We'll
not
just
at all.
say that, but I do still have nightmares about the red light, green light.
Oh, yeah. Breaking
but very
cookies.
entertaining.
Very entertaining.
And Gilded Age is back with a very successful Season 3 premiere, apparently.
Third season of its own as well. HBO, when they put something on a Sunday night, they're like, this is the best we have. And it is on a Sunday night as well. Season 3, episode 1 dropped this past week. And it's just a glorious thing to watch. It's the complete opposite end of the spectrum of Squid Game, right? This is like beautifully paced and shot, and the costumes and the cast. It's just one of my favorite shows on television right now. And it's Sunday nights on HBO, and this time it's a little bit more about like inter-family dynamics as opposed to family versus family, new money versus old money. So yeah, if you don't watch, you gotta. There's a lot of like amazing storytelling and acting going on here.
All right, you've convinced me.
Yes.
I'm in.
Yes. Great.
All right, well, Gans, thank you, friend.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'm Diane Macedo. The news never stops, and neither do we. We have a lot more news right after the break. Stay with us.
I knew aliens were looking for me.
Disney Pixar's Elio is the best Pixar movie in years.
This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
This is the bathroom.
And Pixar's best original since Coco.
I am not fireproof. Just get in my mouth. It's actually kind of comfy in here. It is? I've never been in there.
It's the reason we go to the movies.
You are more puny than I expected.
I could say the same about you.
What?
Disney and Pixar's Elio. Rated PG. Now playing only in theaters.
Come on. Come on. Come on now.
You have no idea what to expect now.
Come on, man.
America's #1 news, ABC News, now streaming 24/7 on Disney+. David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, the most watched newscast in America, and honored with the Emmy Award, winner for Outstanding Live News Program.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, you're looking at the White House on this Friday, and we have a lot of news to get to. The government could soon fine people in the U.S. illegally without warning. The fines could cost migrants up to $1,000 a day. It comes as the Justice Department and Homeland Security propose a new rule eliminating the current 30-day warning period. Meanwhile, the family of an American citizen is speaking out after she was arrested by federal immigration agents. Her family says it's a controversial arrest. They're even calling it a kidnapping. It comes as we learn more about how many immigrants arrested actually have a criminal history. ABC's Andrea Fujii has the latest.
A chaotic scene as an American citizen was arrested by federal immigration agents in Los Angeles, her family describing it as a kidnapping.
My mom looked at the rear mirror and she saw how my sister was attacked from the back. She's like, they're kidnapping your sister. I'm like, who? Like, it was just happened so fast.
32-year-old Andrea Velez was getting dropped off for work when she was taken into custody during an immigration raid. She was charged with assault after officials say she forcefully obstructed an ICE officer. Her family claims that's not the case.
Can't even see some of the videos because it just hurts me so much.
The arrest coming days after masked agents violently detained landscaper Narciso Barranco. His son says his father is undocumented but has no criminal history. Authorities say Narciso swung a weed whacker and resisted arrest, but the video shows no apparent assault on officers. Homeland Security says more than 1,600 people in Southern California have been arrested for deportation this month. And nationwide, more than 56,000 undocumented immigrants are currently being held in ICE detention. Of those, nearly half have no criminal history, despite the Trump administration saying criminals would be a priority. For one man in Georgia, his criminal past landed him in ICE detention despite being pardoned for his crime. 46-year-old Rodney Taylor, a double amputee, has lived in the U.S. since his mother brought him here from Africa at the age of 2 for medical treatment. He was convicted of burglary at age 16, but in 2010, he was granted a pardon. Still, ICE says his old conviction is grounds for detention and potential deportation.
He's never been back to Liberia. America's all he knows.
President Trump says the immigration enforcement efforts are making Americans safer.
We're bringing criminals out by the thousands. Nobody can even imagine.
As for Andrea Velez in L.A., she's out on bond, due back in court next month. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
Andrea, thank you. And the man accused of killing a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband is set to appear in federal court today. He's also accused of shooting and injuring a state senator and his wife. The suspect allegedly ambushed all 4 victims at their homes. Meanwhile, State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband will lie in state today. Hortman is the first woman to lie in state at the Capitol in St. Paul. Now the suspect's wife is speaking out for the first time. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more.
Murder suspect Vance Bolter's wife is breaking her silence, speaking out about her husband's alleged role in the assassination of a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, and the shooting of another couple. Jenny Bolter calling the killing a betrayal, writing, "We are absolutely shocked, heartbroken, and completely blindsided. This violence does not at all align with our beliefs as a family." Jenny's husband, Vance, who is due in court today, faces stalking and murder charges after allegedly disguising himself as a police officer, wearing a latex mask, killing Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband on June 14th, and trying to assassinate State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Police say he had a hit list with the names of 45 other state and federal officials on it, most of them prominent Democrats, some with ties to the abortion rights movement. Jenny, who authorities say was briefly detained after the shooting, denies she was pulled over by police, claiming she voluntarily agreed to meet with them. Police affidavits say Jenny was stopped while seemingly trying to leave town with her 4 kids. A search of her vehicle allegedly uncovering passports, $10,000 in cash, and 2 guns. Officers say Bolter, described as a so-called doomsday prepper, texted Jenny that day, telling her to prepare for war, adding they needed to get out of the house and people with guns may be showing up.
The world is a less beautiful place without them.
It comes as Mark Hortman's brother remembers the slain couple.
But they fit together like nothing you've ever seen. Of all this, that may be the only bright spot, is that he didn't have to go through all that alone.
The pair will lie in state at the Minnesota Capitol today.
Authorities have not linked Bolter's wife to the plot. Bolter has not yet entered a plea. Authorities have not revealed a motive. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Andrew, thank you. And a Syrian teenager is now being charged in a foil plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert. German officials say the teen was helping a foreign terror group with bomb building and putting the mastermind in contacts with the Islamic State militia. The attack was targeting the 2024 Eras Tour stop in Vienna. ABC's Lama Hassan has more on those details. Lama, what's the latest here?
Yeah, hey, Diane. So not many details at this stage, but here's what we know so far. So according to the German prosecutor's office, they say that a teenager who they are identifying as Muhammad A., as you said, he is a Syrian national. He's being accused of translating a bomb-making manual that was written in Arabic and also for communicating with a young Austrian who was arrested back in August last year. Of course, he was part of the plan to bomb one of Taylor Swift's concerts. Now, the suspect, Muhammad A., has been charged in Germany, but he is not in custody at the moment, Diane.
Lama, 3 others were arrested in 2024 after this attack. So what's the latest on that part of this?
Yeah, that's right, Diane. So 3 suspects, teenagers, they were arrested in connection with the foiled attacks, allegedly inspired by ISIS. And according to authorities, the main suspect, a 19-year-old Austrian citizen, he not only pledged allegiance to ISIS, but he also focused on the Taylor Swift's Eras Tour as a target. Now, he hoped to kill as many people as possible. And we understand that they are at a penal institution about 30 miles south of Vienna. You'll also remember that it was the CIA that provided the information about a potential attack to Austrian authorities. They were able to disrupt the plot. They believe the suspects' plans were in the advanced stages. Bomb-making materials, including chemical substances and technical devices, they were found during a raid on the main suspect's home. At the time, Taylor Swift said that she was devastated for the fans that the concerts had been cancelled, but she said that she was so grateful because she was grieving concerts and not lives. Diane.
All right, Lama Hassan, thank you. And Vogue's longtime editor-in-chief is finding a new fit for the magazine known as Fashion's Bible. Anna Wintour has led American Vogue for almost 40 years. She also oversees other Condé Nast magazines around the world. Now she says a new editor will take over running Vogue. GMA co-anchor Michael Strahan has more.
The queen of fashion relinquishing her throne. Anna Wintour announcing she's stepping away from her role as editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, the fashion Bible she helmed for more than 3 decades.
What's really remarkable about her is not only has she shaped the fashion industry, but she's also really transcended to become this larger pop culture figure. She was the one who made the transition for magazines to stop putting models as much on the cover and start putting celebrities on the cover.
Her reputation for razor-sharp critique has had many fashionistas shaking in their high-heeled boots.
All right, everyone, gird your loins.
Even inspiring Meryl Streep's performance in The Devil Wears Prada.
Sure. No, that wasn't a question.
On Thursday, Wintour telling her staff that the search is on to find Vogue's next head of editorial content and that she is ready to work alongside someone new who will challenge us, inspire us, and make us all think about Vogue in a myriad of original ways. Last month, we sat down together at her Vogue office to talk about the Met Gala, a once small fundraiser for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, becoming fashion's biggest night and one of the most exclusive red carpet events in the world.
Do you have a special moment or outfit or look over the years?
No. I mean, the outfits are great, costumes are great, seeing all these people are amazing. But my work is really about raising the money, the much needed funds for the Costume Institute. Yeah. So that is what drives me, and that is what makes me feel I'm doing a good job.
And while she will no longer hold the title of editor-in-chief, she remains in her larger role as chief content officer for Condé Nast and global editorial director for Vogue Worldwide.
Anna Wintour is still going to be incredibly involved in Vogue. This will just bring in someone who's sort of going to steer the ship for American Vogue on a day-to-day basis.
Michael Strahan, thank you. A Florida woman is sharing her story after a tornado picked up her house while she was home. The 76-year-old says it felt like something out of a movie. You can see as the tornado comes, lifts the house, and then puts it back on the ground after about 15 seconds. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more on her story and where she says she ended up when the home came crashing back down.
A Florida woman is grateful to be alive after a tornado picked up her home, clear off its foundation, leaving her hanging on for dear life.
It was really kindled to like a Wizard of Oz experience.
Video captured the moment Wednesday night when an EF1 tornado moved through the city of Largo, north of St. Petersburg, lifting this mobile home nearly completely off the ground, leaving it teetering on its side for 15 seconds before slamming back down to earth. 76-year-old Deborah Metler was inside that home through the entire ordeal.
I didn't realize I was actually up in the air. I was too busy doing somersaults and getting thrashed from one side of the room to the wall to the other side. I ended up back here in the bedroom. I had been in what was a family room and stepped out, which was good because it's no longer there at all. So I'd stayed in that room. I don't know what would have happened to me.
Miraculously, she not only survived, but managed to walk away with only bruises. A neighbor helped her get out.
How she survived it is unbelievable.
Around 65 homes were damaged in the area. More than a dozen tornadoes have been reported nationwide since Wednesday. All but this one were in the upper Midwest. Multiple tornadoes have hit southern Minnesota. This one taking down power lines and damaged buildings.
That's insane.
And new video shows the powerful tornado that touched down in North Dakota late last week, destroying multiple homes and killing 3 people.
Today, parts of the northern plains are again at risk for possible tornadoes and flash flooding. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Andrew, thank you. And fireball sightings are being reported in multiple states across the southeastern U.S. Viral videos show a fireball shooting through the sky, some of them in broad daylight. Now emergency officials are trying to figure out exactly what that was. ABC's Sam Champion has the story.
Stunning images showing fireballs darting across the southeastern U.S. sky.
Whoa, did you see that?
I did. Witnesses reporting the spectacle from Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and South Carolina Thursday just after noon. Watch as the bright flashes of light come bolting down the otherwise clear blue skies. NOAA's geostationary lightning mapper detecting the flashes, and NASA confirming it was a meteor traveling at 30,000 miles per hour.
You hear that? Everything's shaking.
Some residents in central Georgia reported hearing loud explosions and felt their homes tremble. The National Weather Service of Peachtree City, Georgia, posting images of debris and holes in the ground and homes. Damage, they say, was caused by fragments and the sonic boom from the meteor. So far, no injuries have been reported. According to NASA, meteoroids are space rocks that range from tiny dust grains to small asteroids and are called meteors when those space rocks enter Earth's atmosphere. Scientists estimate that nearly 50 tons of space debris falls on Earth each day.
Sam Champion, thank you to Sam Champion for that. And according to NASA's Meteoroid Environments Office, the fireball was from an asteroid fragment 3 feet in diameter, weighing over a ton. Keep in mind, it is rare to see a meteor enter our atmosphere and become a visible fireball. Pretty interesting. Coming up, the middle school student taking legal action over the Pledge of Allegiance.
I decided I wanted to sit down because I didn't feel comfortable standing because of what's happening.
What she says her teacher did that has her suing the school district.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you, David. Good to meet you.
Ismail?
David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Success is the... Hold on. I just had it.
Unless everything changes, this restaurant needs to officially cease operations.
Because keeping it open would be like
beating a dead horse before you throw it off a cliff.
We get it. I think we get it.
Showtime! Try to keep up, yeah?
Walk like a G. There you go, Neil.
Imagine going from hip-hop kingpin to facing the possibility of life in prison for alleged sex trafficking. Now, with a trial underway and Diddy's life hanging in the balance of a New York jury, what will happen next inside that courtroom? Bad Rap, the case against Diddy, breaking down every new twist, turn, and development inside the courtroom. Listen to breaking news on the Diddy trial wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, it is time for our weekly segment, Patel It Like It Is, where ABC News contributor Dr. Alok Patel shares health advice on the topics that matter most to you. And today he's talking about a new study on ADHD medications and new research on how naps impact your brain function. Dr. Patel, always great to have you. So let's start with this new study about the benefits of ADHD medications. It says these medications are linked to lower risk of self-harm, traffic crashes, injuries, and criminal behavior. So break it down for us. What sticks out to you about this one?
And this is a relatively large study out of Sweden looking at about 270,000 individuals aged 4 to 64. And when compared to individuals with ADHD who were not medicated, those on medication had up to a 29% decreased incidence of traffic accidents and unintentional injuries, up to a 27% decreased risk of self-harm. And this only adds to previous research we have in U.S. populations, both in adults and in the pediatric population, that when people have ADHD and they're properly medicated, in general, they're safer. There's less injuries, less visits to the ER and the hospital. And overall, when we're looking at ADHD, if people are properly treated and medicated, that can improve academic and work performance, relationships. It has so many positive benefits. And we have to talk about this because while we have millions of individuals with ADHD, we still also have stigma. People not really understanding the symptoms, looking at medications as a crutch, when in reality, medications are absolutely appropriate alongside potential lifestyle interventions and therapy and so much more. So we know that when individuals have ADHD and they're properly treated, they're just set up for success. And this study really adds to that.
There's also this new research out on the benefits of a power nap. Apparently, it improves our problem-solving skills.
Look, I don't need research to tell people that I do really well with power naps and my creativity goes through the roof. This is a relatively small study, but it's fascinating, Diane. These German researchers had about 90 volunteers and had them take on a task of trying to track dots on a computer program. And when they asked their volunteers to take a quick nap, they have found more creative ways to do this. What does this add? These researchers suggest that when people take...
This is an ABC News special report.
I'm Wade Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air because President Trump is speaking from the White House briefing room right now in the wake of some consequential Supreme Court decisions. Let's listen in.
And the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades, and we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant, and they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam, please say a few words.
Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer. And on immigration, on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors. They vetoed all of President Trump's power, and they cannot do that. This has been a bipartisan problem that has lasted 5 presidential terms, 5 different presidents, and it has ended today. We will continue to fight for President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel, Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible. Our Solicitor General's office, John Sowers, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovey. Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major ruling today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no longer will they have this power in our country. It is the president's authority under his executive branch to do everything to fight for the American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Today's a great day for the rule of law. It's a great day for the Justice Department, and it's one that's been a long time coming and one that every American should have been waiting for with bated breath. And so I echo what the President said and Attorney General Bondi, that the Supreme Court did a great thing today, not only for this administration, but for every American in this country. If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to decide their child's education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it. But that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off today, but over the past few weeks. We had a stay of an order that prevented DHS from moving aliens to a third country. We had a stay of an order that stopped the Department of Defense from implementing military readiness, the EO that President Trump signed. We had another stay of an order forcing reinstatement of fired executive branch employees entirely within the president and Article 2, his right to do. We had a stay of, as you all know, of numerous DOJ cases. And again, every one of those stays requires a tremendous amount of work and effort by the lawyers and parties involved, and they should be doing other work. They should be doing the work that the president and this administration demands and has a right to demand, and not fighting these local judges who don't make decisions based on the law. They make decisions because they just simply don't agree with the administration's decision about a policy, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, for Pam, please.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Attorney General. So, as you know, the Supreme Court did not rule on the underlying constitutionality of the President's birthright citizenship order. So, what is the plan now? Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes. I guess it could come down. I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win. But most likely, that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon, not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting on that in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
Oh, we're very confident in the Supreme Court. But again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Madam Attorney General, thank you for being here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO had a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions, and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban. Just for explanation purposes, why?
Sure, because that's going to come down in October in the separate. This was huge because it's indirectly impacted today. As I said, it's case by case. Let me reiterate, of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as President of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy. These 5 districts. So yes, it indirectly impacts us. It will be a separate decision in October. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that. But this is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country, and we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
And Justice Amy Coney Barrett, sir, I know that you praised her and her opinion here in this case. She has taken some heat, though, from some of your supporters who have labeled her weak, a squishy, a rattled law professor. What is your take on that?
I don't know about that. I just have great respect for her. I always have. And her decision was brilliantly written today, from all accounts. Yeah.
Transgender ruling, Mr. President. What would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about, and this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Illegal crossings in the border are zero now.
Zero. Does everyone hear that? Zero.
Trump 2028. Do you intend, President Trump?
Who's that guy? I like him. He's working the cameras.
With this new reality, President Trump, in the border, do you intend to engage personally with leaders from South America, not only Central America,
Sure.
in order to tackle this situation in a regional way? And if you have a perspective of meeting some presidents from South America, as Brazil, for example.
Well, you should, as an example, not South America, but NATO over the weekend.
Yeah.
They have great respect for our country now. They did things that nobody thought was possible. They took funding from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought they'd ever pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. It's over $1 trillion more a year. Think of that, $1 trillion. Nobody thought that could happen. That's a different group of people, different countries. Yeah, but we get along with a lot of countries. We are respected again. Our country, the U.S., is respected again. Was not respected 6 months ago. I can tell you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, you have a deadline coming up on trade in 2 weeks. Which countries, if any, on trade, on tariffs, sir? Which countries, if any, are close to agreements with the administration?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal with probably 4 or 5 different countries. With the UK, it was a great deal for both. And we're in the process of making some others. But ultimately, in fact, Scott is here, and Howard Lutnick, these 2 guys have been doing an incredible job, and the people that work with them have been doing an incredible job. But, you know, we have 200 countries, you could say 200 countries plus. We can't do that. So at a certain point over the next week and a half or so, or maybe before, we're going to send out a letter. We talked to many of the countries, and we're just going to tell them what they have to pay to do business in the United States. And it's going to go very quickly. But some of the bigger countries, so India, I think we're going to reach a deal where we have the right to go in and trade. Right now it's restricted. You can't walk in there. You can't even think about it. We're looking to get a full trade barrier dropping, which is unthinkable. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but as of this moment, we've agreed to that, go into Indian trade. We're going to be trading in China. That's going to come a little bit down the road, but we're going to be trading in China. We have a lot of great things going, and we're getting along with countries, but some will be disappointed because they're going to have to pay tariffs. And we've taken in already hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. No inflation. The only problem we have is we have a Fed guy that doesn't understand what's happening, and it would be great if he'd lower the rate because we'd be able to borrow a lot cheaper. Yeah, go ahead, please. Why don't we keep it on this subject? This is such a big subject. You know what? Trade is so big, but this, I don't know, in a certain way, this might be bigger than trade. I think this is bigger than trade. Yes, please, go ahead.
I was wondering, though, if you could...
Go ahead.
Sir, on the transgender ruling, the Supreme Court ruling that parents with religious objections can pull their kids out of public school lessons that use LGBTQ materials. Pam brought it up. Your reaction to that ruling today, sir?
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am surprised that it went this far. it took us to bring life back to normal. So it's wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give you back your parental rights. They were taken away, and this is a tremendous victory for parents. Yeah.
Mr. President, if you look at the back at the last week, it's been extraordinary in terms of the action in the Middle East. You were at The Hague.
I'm wondering now, hell of a week, hasn't it?
I'm wondering now if you believe that Iran. I'm wondering now, sir, if you believe that Iran has given up its long history of ambitions with nuclear weapons, or what you would like to see from them to prove that they do, and what type of meetings is your administration looking for next week with Iran?
So Iran wants to meet. As you know, their sites were obliterated. They're very evil nuclear sites. They were now has been proven. We had some fake news for a little while. The same people that covered the Hunter Biden laptop was from Russia, the same people that did 3 or 4 other Russia hoax.
But on their ambition.
No, wait, just listen. They came up with something that delayed the credit that our great pilots and these great what talent that was, and they hit it right down in the spot. 52,000 feet. Think of this dark, no moon, you couldn't see a thing. And they hit the refrigerator door, as they say. That's the size of a target, and overwhelmingly. And it's amazing what was done. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we took out the 2 of the other sites also. In addition to that, we finished them off. That was a very evil intention. I believe that, and again, time will tell, but I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear anytime soon. They spent over $1 trillion on nuclear, and they never got it together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way. To do that is very dangerous. It's very, very heavy material. Those cars were most likely the cars of masons because they were pouring concrete at the top, at the hatch, as you know, the hatch going into the nuclear site. They wanted to reinforce it, and they had some masons there pouring concrete. By the way, that concrete was obliterated. It hit exactly at the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry, but everything's down there. It's under millions of tons of rock. Please. Yes.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere. So why haven't you yet canceled temporary protected status for that country? Was it part of the deal?
Well, we'll take a look. We've had a great relationship with El Salvador. They have a fantastic leader. They built a massive prison system. And I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system. And we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out. And frankly, when they hear they have to go there, they become very nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough system, but it's a brilliant system, and it's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador. A lot of respect. Yeah, please.
Thank you. A question for you, and then a question for the Attorney General. As you go into negotiations and talks with Iran, are you demanding not only that there would be no uranium production inside of Iran, but also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles of uranium?
Well, you know, we're a little early for that, but something like that, yeah, we'll do something like that. Let me say that I've been saying for 25 years, even as a civilian, you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon, and that's what happened. It's been obliterated. It would be years before they could ever get going, and I really think it's probably the last thing. They have to recover from a hell of a tough war.
Would you also be demanding that the IAEA have full rights to inspect in Iran?
Or somebody, yeah, or somebody that we respect, and then including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented, who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents, or?
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
If you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be an enforcement priority?
The violent criminals in our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective. Today marked the 2,711th arrest in our country of TDA members, just TDA. Everyone in this room agrees they are one of the most violent criminal organizations in the world. And the Biden administration let them walk into our country for the last 4 years. 2,711 of them today have been arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs, and not one district court judge can think they're an emperor over this administration and his executive powers and why the people of the United States elected him.
I just might add one thing, and they used birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels, to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years, but they've used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in, and what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators are racing to rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian ruled that sections of it were outside of the process that they're using to get this through. Do you think that senators should respect the decisions of the parliamentarian? And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes?
Well, look, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think of what they're not approving. They're not approving border security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some wall. We have to do various things. We have no money for that. We have no money for the border. We have no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'd be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine. The parliamentarian's been a little difficult, and I would say that I disagree with the parliamentarian on some things, and on other ways she's been fine. But we'll have to see. It's a big issue. I will tell you this: if that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 68% tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it. That means you're voting in favor, because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country. And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by $1.7 trillion, and it won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. Oh. What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked, because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because as you know, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
But Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in, I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems? There's so much money coming in, and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake, because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. He calls me back 2 hours later, says, "You're right. We took in $88 billion in tariffs." They have so much money coming in. But more important than the money coming in, we have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Qatar. We went to UAE. Very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders. And we took in $5.1 trillion just there. Without the tariffs, I mean, they also liked a thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election. Now you have it go over it. But even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide. And they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, "We're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because if I ever took the tariffs off," and we are going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody that, like this communist from New York, someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York. But the rest of the country is revolting against it. But if somebody got elected, they're afraid that if this was taken off, well, we're going to guarantee it's never going to be taken off. And again, we're taking in think of this, hundreds of billions of dollars. And they were all confused because they've never seen this before. You know, it's always the other way. We don't have enough money. So much money is coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. But most importantly, we have factories being built, car plants being built, companies moving to our country like never before. If you look at $15 trillion, and that's only in a few months. You know, I haven't been here that long. Presidents, like the last one, was a disaster. He's the worst president in the history of our country, by the way. What he did on our border can never, ever be forgotten. To me, that's the worst of all the things. And he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him, because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders, I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, "You went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country." And you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there are some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking it billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of $1 trillion, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charged us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them, and they don't like it. So they're upset because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even, or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit, or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go. Go ahead. Red dress.
On the 2020 election, is there any more information on the special prosecutor? So many Americans still have questions about the 2020 election. And speaking of rogue judges, would you consider appointing somebody at DOJ maybe to investigate the judges that allowed for the political persecution of you, your family, and your supporters during the Biden administration?
I love you. Who are you?
I'm Kara from Lindell TV.
Well, that's just a very nice question. And it's not a setup. I have no idea who you are, but I appreciate that question. All I can say is we're not here for that. I hope so. I hope they're doing a thing because that election was rigged and stolen, and we can't allow that to happen. You know, a lot of people tell me, sir, you just won the greatest election in the history of our country. You won at numbers that won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything. Sir, go on with your life. And many people that say that, good people, friends of mine, then you have people that say that same thing, go on with your life, but you have to find out what happened because you can't let that happen again. Look at what this lunatic did. Look at what he did. He opened our borders to people that were murderers, 11,888 to be exact, murderers. And we've captured many of those murderers, and we're bringing them back. Or some of them are so dangerous that we don't even want to bring them back. We're afraid they're going to try and come back in. But he allowed people to come into this country, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, that's a mental institution on steroids, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, people, jails being emptied out into our country. Venezuela emptied out almost its entire prison population into our country. But I don't want to blame them. Many countries have done that. The Congo, you know, we have a great press conference coming up later, and it's the Congo and Rwanda. You know, they were fighting for years, and it was machetes, it was vicious, it was as vicious, people's heads being chopped off. And I have a man who's very good in that part of the world, very smart, and put them together, and we're signing a peace treaty today. First time in many years they're going to have peace, and that's a big deal. You know, we talk about Russia, and we're working that one. President Putin called up, and he said, I'd love to help you with Iran. I said, do me a favor. I'll handle Iran. Help me with Russia. We got to get that one settled. And I think something's going to happen there. But we did some great work. India and Pakistan. That was going to be maybe nuclear. We did that. We did a lot of work. I don't know if there's ever been a president that's done much more. Serbia, Kosovo was going to go at it. Going to be a big war. I said, you go at it. There's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it. That's what happened with India and Pakistan. I was negotiating with both of them, and I said to Scott, I said to Howard, cancel all deals with India and Pakistan. They're not trading with us because they're in a war. They called back, what do we do? I said, look, you want to have trade with the United States, it's great. But you want to go and start using nuclear weapons on each other? We're not going to allow that. And they both agreed. Both have great leaders. They both agreed not to do it. So we did a lot, but I appreciate that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I was just speaking with Senator Ron Johnson on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he says he really wants to get to yes for you and get this accomplished.
He does. He's a good man.
But he also said that he needs more time, and he is not certain that the July 4th deadline is possible.
Well, then he's not such a good man.
Because there's too much work to do.
He's a good man. Ron Johnson's doing a good job. He's very committed. Every Republican senator is committed. And, you know, you could have a couple of grandstanders, in all fairness. You could have somebody else. And it's very dangerous because our country would go from being the most successful country in the world to who knows what happens with a 68%. Think of it, 68% tax increase. That was given by the Democrats because they like high taxes. I don't know what happened. You know, all my life, I'd grow up and I'd watch politicians talking. I'd say, oh, that's fun. And they were always saying, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your tax. I never heard it. They say, we will raise your taxes. And they elect people like this guy in New York that maybe has a chance. I find it hard to believe, but he maybe has a chance. They want to raise your taxes. So they want to see a 68% tax increase. That's more money than anybody could afford. You'd go into a depression if that ever happened. So I think there's a lot of pressure to get that approved.
is the July 4th deadline to you? If
it's important. It's not the end all. It can go longer, but we'd like to get it done by that time, if possible. And look, we have a lot of very committed people, and they feel very strongly about subjects that you're not even thinking about that are important to Republicans. The problem we have is that it's a great bill. It's a popular bill, but we'll get no Democrats only because they don't want to vote for Trump. If that bill was their bill, oh, they would be so happy. It's so great for our military. It's great for everything. And they would normally vote, but because their hatred of Trump, they have Trump derangement syndrome at levels never seen before. And instead of voting for a tax cut, they're voting for a tax increase of 68%. They're voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect and to make them better, make them stronger and better. They're going to destroy Medicaid, and they're going to destroy Medicare, and Social Security will follow. If you vote for the Democrats, you're dead on those three things.
Thank you, Mr. President. On a related subject, many Democrats have said that they are not going to support crypto bills in Congress only because of you and your family's personal crypto ventures. And these votes are in some cases needed to pass. Are you open to the idea of pulling away from your personal crypto ventures just for the next few years if that helps get these crypto bills passed in the next few months?
Well, it's a very funny thing, crypto. So I became a fan of crypto, and to me it's an industry. I view it as an industry, and I'm president. And if we didn't have it, China would, or somebody else would, but most likely China. China would love to. And we've dominated that industry. It's a big industry, by the way. In fact, when the stock market went down recently, crypto and Bitcoin and all of that went down much less than anybody else as a group. And we've created a very powerful industry, and that's much more important than anything that we invest in. We invest in it, but really that was an industry that wasn't doing particularly well. I got involved with it a couple of years ago, and before the second term. I got involved before I decided to run. I only decided to run because I saw what was happening, and Biden was incompetent, and the administration was crooked and incompetent. And I was in Bitcoin then, not knowing if I was going to do it a third time. So it's become amazing. I mean, it's the jobs that it produces. And I notice more and more you pay in Bitcoin. I mean, people are saying it takes a lot of pressure off the dollar. And it's a great thing for our country. So I don't care about investing. You know, I have I have kids, and they invest in different things. They do believe in it. But I'm president, and what I did do there is build an industry that's very important. And, you know, if we didn't have it, China would. Okay.
Sir, Mr. President.
Go ahead. With the glasses, gentlemen, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, are you going to cut funds in the sanctuary states, like, for instance, California, that keep supporting illegal immigration, and then these people work under
Yeah, we're
the
giving
table?
them a hard time.
And also, in a foreign policy question.
I mean, they don't have a governor in California. They have a man that wants to give away everything to people that nobody's seen before. If we didn't go into Los Angeles with the military, which did a fantastic job, but if we didn't go into Los Angeles bringing in the National Guard, I would have brought the military if it was necessary, because you have to. We have the right to. That was another thing upheld by the Supreme Court. But if we didn't go in with the National Guard and be strong and tough, you wouldn't maybe have Los Angeles. It would be like the rest of California, the rest of Los Angeles. They lost 25,000 houses in a fire. They should have lost none. You know, I sent the water down. I had to break into their water supply because they just refused to do it. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them. They have plenty of water. They don't have droughts or anything. They have plenty. We let it come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed all the water out into the Pacific Ocean for environmental reasons, okay? And now you have 25,000 houses, none of which would have burned down if you had the water. They didn't have water. They didn't have water for the fire pumps. They didn't have water in the sprinkler systems that people put in. So the answer is we're going to work with governors. We're going to work with radical left Democrats and Democrats, and we're going to make it good for everybody. We'll have to stop the crime in those, in the case of the cities, I think I can say just about all cities with heavy crime are run by Democrats.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, with the glasses.
I'm with you.
Go ahead, yes. Yeah, no, the man behind you, yeah, please.
President Trump, Anthony Mashak from Anthony, Lebanon. I want to ask you regarding the threats posed by Iran's allies and proxies operating in the U.S. They were threatening your life. So what do you say about that? And regarding the Lebanon, because Hezbollah is as well part of Iran's allies, is there any time frame in Lebanon regarding disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah, Lebanon is a great place with brilliant people. You know, it was known for the professors and doctors and had an incredible history. And hopefully we can bring it back again. I just appointed a friend of mine who's Lebanese, and I didn't know he was Lebanese. I've known him for 20 years, very, very successful man. And I just appointed him. And I said, why would you want that? He said, because I was born there, I was raised there, I love it. I love it so much. I said, you know, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon as ambassador. And he said, that's what they say, but I don't care about danger. I mean, this is a guy that is just a very big business guy. He wants to give up his whole life to go to Lebanon because he believes in it so much. We're with Lebanon all the way. We'll try and straighten it out.
Threatening your life as well. So what action?
Threaten my life? Yeah, they have threatened. I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. Get that throbbing feeling, but you know what? That's okay. This is a dangerous business. What I do is a dangerous business. You know, I tell the story of the car companies and different people in different professions you have. Race car drivers, as an example. 1/10 of 1% die. Bull riders, 1/10 of 1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run. Okay? This is a very dangerous profession. By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead.
On Iran.
You tell me when it gets boring, okay?
If Iran...
Are you from Iran?
No, I'm not from Iran. I'm from the UK. But if the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
And have you had any conversations?
Turned out to be unbelievable. But, you know, our incredible flyers and I call them the shots. These guys are unbelievable. Think from 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much smaller than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible thing. I don't know if you heard the general. He was very impressive. Raisin Cane. You know, he's the one that beat ISIS for me. And he did it in a matter of weeks. And I was told it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And when I got this job, I always said, if I get this job, I'm going to put that guy as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Dan Kane, and he, when I heard his name was Raisin, his nickname is Raisin Cane. I said, you got to be kidding. So I liked him right from the beginning. But he knocked out ISIS in a time that nobody ever thought possible. And when this attack was completed and so successful, I said, now I know how you knocked out ISIS so quickly. But we have the best people. We have the best equipment in the world. You know, I rebuilt the military during my 4 years, during my other term. We have the best equipment in the world. The problem is we gave away, you know, a lot of it, but small, relatively speaking. We gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan. Shouldn't have happened. That just shows how incompetent they were. They gave all that equipment away, billions and billions of dollars worth. Shouldn't have happened. But that was small compared to what we have. Now we have a great military with great people. Okay.
Mr. President, congratulations. A couple of very different questions. One is Rwanda in 1994. As you grew up in New York, we all knew how horrific those attacks were. Congratulations on that treaty. There are talks that perhaps...
That's going to take place today at 3 o'clock in the Oval Office. We're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo.
I have a follow-up.
So I'm a little out of my league in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing. They were going at it for many years and with machetes. It is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody that was able to get it settled. I mean, just a brilliant person who is very comfortable in that part of the world. It's a very dangerous part of the world. I said, are you uncomfortable there? People are being killed. School children are being raided and killed. And I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Are you uncomfortable? No, that's the part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. Was able to get them together and sell it. And not only that, we're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here. They never thought they'd be coming to, look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House, and they're so honored. And so we're going to give them a great big reception. But that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Sir, are you concerned at all about secret nuclear sites in Iran? You talked about maybe just
secret nuclear sites?
Yes, there might be some that
not really. Can I tell you, they're exhausted. And Israel's exhausted too. And I dealt with both of them. And they both wanted it settled, both of them. And we did a great job, but they're exhausted. The last thing they're thinking about right now is nuclear. You know what they're thinking of? They're thinking about tomorrow, trying to live. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. The place was bombed to hell. And no, I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm putting out a little statement. I'm going to respond to the Ayatollah's statement yesterday that we won the war. Oh, God, we won the war. And I said, look, you're a man of great faith, a man who's highly respected in this country. You have to tell the truth. You got beat to hell. And Israel was beat up, too. They were both beat up. And it was a great time to end it. It was quick. They got the hate out. There was a lot of hate, a lot of hate. It would be great if they didn't have that hate. But the last thing they're thinking about is nuclear weapons right now. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Iris Howe with NTD Research Media with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for doing this. It's very refreshing for all of us here,
It's a good group.
in this room.
It's refreshing?
Very refreshing, yes. We haven't had this in,
I understand what you mean.
So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other than Caroline's done a great job.
Yes, sure.
You're referring to the past administration, not to Caroline, right?
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So you have always talked about winning for the American people.
Right.
How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy? What actions are you most eager to move forward
Well, I think
now?
taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous. This is such a big day. This is such a big day. It's like it's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may very well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affecting the continent of. Think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected, and we're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency. And it only takes bad power away from judges. It really doesn't take power. It takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power. And it's really going to be, this is a very monumental decision. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you very much. On July 9th, is that July 9th date set for tariffs to snap back? Or could there be a...
We can do whatever we want. We could extend it. We could make it shorter. I'd like to make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%. He doesn't want, he's a much nicer person than I am. So how do you finish it up?
Were you considering for the Federal Reserve then? And are you speeding up that process? I see Secretary.
Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible. I mean, I have a list of things. We're like 38 on the list. We pay, Cameroon and different places are paying the same as us. Because, you have somebody sets their rate at 4% or 4.5%. It's hard to go out and say we should be paying 1% when you have your so-called experts doing it. And the sad part is, as per the question that you asked about tariffs, we've had the tariffs, and we have less inflation than we had before. What we have is a hell of a lot more money, a hell of a lot more income, and we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I'll tell you, each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25. In other words, 25% of 1%. and they're the number one right now. But we should be the number one. And soon you're going to have, I think, you're going to have where the people will pay will pay, like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and I mean, you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it, where you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and he probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. Wouldn't you say those numbers are about right, Scott? So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about $600 billion. All because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He's doing the service, a very and then he goes up and talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. You know, he gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, and he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest cost by $900 billion a year. All he has to do is lower rates. And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, you know, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no inflation. Now, despite him, we're doing great. But if we got the rates down, we would be a rocket ship. So I think that'll be it. And I just want to thank everybody. This is a really big day. We've had a big week. You know, we've had a big week. We've had a lot of victories this week. NATO was a tremendous victory. The war was a tremendous. Look, we were talking about this for 30 years, about Iran being nuclear. And all I said is it will not be nuclear, and it's not going to be nuclear. And, you know, I want to give credit to a lot of people, and most importantly to our great military. Boy, they put out that fire. Once that happened, once those bombs got dropped, that war was over. That war was over. But I just want to compliment them. Incredible. The general and all of his generals. Pete Hegseth was great. They all. And now I want to compliment Pam. A lot of genius went into this. You know, people, if you don't say it exactly right, if the Supreme Court doesn't get it because it's incorrectly spoken about, and that happens. A lot of cases are lost because they don't say the right words. But I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change my mind about that. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have call and say I was only kidding. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. This was a tremendous win, and we've had tremendous wins, but this was a tremendous win today. So I just want to congratulate you and Todd and your whole staff. Very brilliant people, and we can't forget John Sauer.
That's right.
Who is with. There's a medical emergency within his family, so he's taking care of that, and we said absolutely. So I just want to thank everybody very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
You've been watching President Trump and the Attorney General celebrating after several major Supreme Court rulings. The justices are ruling to allow President Trump to move forward with plans to limit birthright citizenship in the U.S. That decision also more broadly limits the ability of individual judges to single-handedly block a presidential policy nationwide. But whether the birthright citizenship order itself is constitutional is still left to be decided. The justices also ruled to support the rights of parents to opt kids out of discussions surrounding LGBTQ-themed books in the classroom. Now the president's praising both of those rulings, calling the birthright citizenship decision in particular, quote, a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. Let's bring in senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer at the Supreme Court, senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, ABC's Maria Villarreal, and ABC News legal contributor, Hofstra Law professor James Sample. James, this decision on birthright citizenship didn't actually rule on the legality of limiting birthright citizenship, but rather the ability of these district judges to block policy across the country.
Correct. And it is a major victory for the Trump administration, not just on the birthright citizenship topic. It's not a victory yet on the merits of that topic, but in terms of the administration's war against the courts, or as the administration perceives it, the courts' opposition to the Trump administration, this is a significant victory that will have sweeping ramifications across the range of substance. Now, part of that is that the Trump administration in the first 100 days set an all-time record in terms of the number of executive orders, 142 executive orders in just the first 100 days. So both on a volume perspective and in terms of the scope of some of those orders, certainly birthright citizenship, basically amending the Constitution via executive order, that's about as broad of scope as you can get. The Trump administration was being blocked in the lower courts. Now those lower courts can block particular policies only on an isolated basis and only to the parties before them in their jurisdictions.
The Attorney General also spoke a lot about this decision, and curious to get your take on one of the things she said about nearly 100 federal districts, that almost all of the nationwide injunctions, the dozens of them, nearly all of them come from just 5 of those districts.
Yeah, that's right. The Attorney General made a significant point of emphasis. The thing that I would say there is that is a bipartisan practice. Certainly during the Biden administration, there were particular jurisdictions that were the subject of what is often referred to as forum shopping. Both sides in the ideological right-left, blue-red divide know how to shop for judges. And I think Pam Bondi was being a little bit selective in focusing on those particular judges.
Devin, the justices also ruled to support parents' rights to opt their kids out of discussions surrounding LGBTQ-themed books in the classroom. The president called that a great ruling for parents. Can you walk us through that and some of the day's other big rulings?
Yeah, there was another significant decision coming down today, Diane, out of the Montgomery County, Maryland, here in the D.C. area. The question on the table was, do parents nationwide have a constitutional right to withdraw their kids from the classroom anytime an idea, a belief is presented to children that is contrary to the parents' religious belief? And Justice Samuel Alito, in his majority opinion, backed by 6 justices, said they do, that subjecting children to an idea that violates a sincerely held religious belief, such as teachings around sexuality and marriage in this case, parents have to have the right to pull their kids out if they want to. Otherwise, in his view, it amounts to indoctrination. Justice Sonia Sotomayor and the liberal justices dissented vigorously, Diane. They said this is now going to open the floodgates to public schools nationwide. Now, basically, parents seeking an opt-out for their children from any teaching that runs counter to their beliefs. They say it's going to make this a mess. So we'll have to see how the practical impact is, but a significant win for religious conservatives and for parents here in Montgomery County of all religious persuasions who didn't want their elementary school children to see any books with LGBTQ themes.
Selena, the president says, thanks to the decision against the nationwide injunctions on birthright citizenship, that order, that the administration can now promptly file to proceed with numerous other policies. So what are you watching for on that front?
Yeah, the president today, he's taking a victory lap, calling this a major win, claiming that now a whole list of his presidential policies can now move forward. This is a win from the sense that it does dramatically reduce the ability of these federal district judges to try and block policy nationwide, those injunctions, which have really been at the heart of this months-long battle between the Trump administration and the federal judiciary. That applying not just to his executive order on birthright citizenship, but also in his broader immigration, deportation policy, federal funding freezes, and efforts to dramatically slash federal government spending. And when it comes to birthright citizenship, this does mean that the administration can move forward with planning how that would go into effect. But this fight is not over. I spoke to one of the lawyers who's representing some of those undocumented pregnant women who brought this case forward, and she says while this may look like a loss on the face of it, it is not. She believes that ultimately birthright citizenship will be upheld, and there is relief that at least for the undocumented pregnant women who are involved in this case, that they are protected. In fact, this group has already filed an amended complaint to try and protect all babies born in this country. So this is a moment of stress for many of those undocumented pregnant women, but they see this for now as a temporary win that they believe can extend.
And Maria, to that point, the Attorney General mentioned several times that come October, the court's expected to rule on the actual constitutionality of the birthright citizenship order itself. So what's the latest on that part of this legal battle?
You know, Diane, that was a really important point in today's press conference. Obviously, when we heard the first question was directed at President Trump, which was, you know, what are we going to see in the next 30 days? What is the administration's plan then? If the Supreme Court has said, listen, you can move forward, you know, in several states, you can put a plan in place that would potentially impact birthright citizenship. What is that plan? And immediately that question moved over to the Attorney General. And then she basically jumped over into, why they are trying to go after the criminals in our country that are immigrants and shouldn't be here, and then also how we were going to eventually see the final outcome, play out, in October in front of SCOTUS. That implies to me that they are already planning for this particular case, the merits of birthright citizenship. They are already expecting to have to argue that in front of SCOTUS, which then means obviously that the plan in and of itself will definitely have some very contentious aspects to it. Speaking with some of our local hospital systems here in the Texas area, they are very concerned about what sort of chaos this could create and really the burden it could potentially create within their own systems. We're not even talking about the added burden that we might see within the court systems as well. So right now, still a lot of uncertainty. Nonprofit organizations are already moving to try and educate people and explain to them, listen, this is not the end. We still have a lot of fighting to do. But listen, at this point, let's stay calm and see exactly what the administration is going to do over the next 30 days.
James, these were 6-3 decisions. The court has issued a number of unanimous decisions this term, but is there something to be read into that we saw the liberal justices all dissenting in these big ones today?
Absolutely. I think that the unanimous decisions tend to come down in non-ideological cases, and the Supreme Court often deals in highly technical cases. But in these ideologically charged political hot-button cases, the divide on the Supreme Court could scarcely be clearer. We are in a very different place than we were even just a decade ago when you take into consideration the changes in personnel. If personnel is policy as a general matter, that is especially true on the Supreme Court level, and the 6-3 divide is no doubt sharp.
All right, Devin Dwyer, Selena Wang, Maria Villarreal, James Sample, thank you all. And thank you for watching. I'm Diane Macedo. The news never stops, and neither do we. We have a lot more news right after the break. Stay with us.
America's #1 news, ABC News, now streaming 24/7 on Disney+.
There's blood everywhere.
No one in cycling gets murdered. What the hell is going on?
Authorities have charged fellow cyclists with first-degree murder.
Tonight.
What is it like to hear that your daughter is a fugitive?
2020, tonight on ABC.
So much to talk about.
Hi, everybody. In this family, there has to be drama.
She's just very judgmental.
We're not doing this chaos.
I will absolutely dominate her.
Wow.
Competition.
Hot and sexy and fun.
It's what makes us us.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, the most watched newscast in America, and honored with the Emmy Award, winner for Outstanding Live News Program. Can't get enough 2020 true crime? This podcast is for you. Go behind the scenes of 2020's gripping stories and get